Sometimes, the universe moves like it's trying to be seen. You feel that tonight not as a thought, but as a quiet pull behind your eyes. The stars are unusually still, and somewhere within that stillness, a single movement glides across the darkness. Slow, certain, intentional. They've named it 3I Atlas, an interstellar visitor that doesn't quite behave like a comet, or a rock, or anything ordinary at all. It entered our solar system months ago, unnoticed at first. A faint shimmer slipping between signals, faint enough to pass as noise. Then, telescopes began to notice something strange. Its path wasn't curved the way comets usually arc under gravity's command. Instead, its trajectory drew a line of precision, straight, silent, deliberate, as if the object wasn't obeying the solar system, but conversing with it. You imagine it moving, not tumbling or drifting, but choosing. Each glint from its surface is soft, as though it reflects not light but attention itself. Astronomers talk in data, in vectors, and orbital inclinations, but what they can't name is what you feel right now, that uncanny sense that something vast and ancient has decided to reveal just enough to be noticed. The deeper you breathe, the more you sense it. A rhythm underneath the silence. A quiet pulse, almost like your heartbeat, hidden in the fabric of the night. And in that rhythm, you hear an echo of the first light, the one that began everything. You close your eyes and try to picture it. Not just an object, but a question, a whisper sent across unimaginable distances. And the whisper is not what is this thing, but why does it move like it knows we're watching? The more we watch it, the stranger it becomes. That's the midpoint, the first shift from curiosity to awareness. When something ceases to be a distant dot and becomes a presence, each night, new observations emerge. Its brightness fluctuates in regular intervals. Its velocity resists predictable drag. It seems to respond subtly, patiently to the act of being observed. When telescopes turn away, it stabilizes. When attention gathers again, it flickers, as though breathing with us. You lean into the thought. Could the universe, in some hidden layer of itself, be responsive? Could it notice when eyes open toward it? Or is this merely a coincidence, our pattern-seeking minds mapping intention onto motion? There's comfort in the uncertainty. It means the mystery isn't meant to be solved quickly. It's meant to be lived with, like an unanswered letter. Some scientists call 3I Atlas an anomaly, a rogue fragment ejected from another system. But that explanation feels too tidy, too mechanical. You sense that something about this object defies containment, that its motion holds storylines older than mathematics. When it bends light, it feels like memory bending time. When it glides near Mars, the orbit looks like choreography. And when it fades behind solar glare, the silence doesn't feel empty, it feels intentional. You picture it emerging again from the shadow of the sun, wrapped in a faint blue haze. That glow, soft, electric, almost liquid, carries a message you can't quite read. Not words, but resonance. A hum between frequencies, just beneath hearing. It doesn't demand attention. It waits for alignment. You realize that what draws you to this mystery isn't fear, but recognition. Like the object, you, too, move through an unseen map, guided by impulses you can't explain, drawn toward meanings you can't name. 3I Atlas travels through space. You travel through consciousness. Both of you, perhaps, are being observed by something larger. And maybe both of you, the traveler and the witness, are made of the same quiet light. A meteor streaks across your imagination, fading without a sound. You remember that everything visible is only a momentary flare in an infinite dark. Yet that darkness feels alive tonight, not empty, but aware. The air itself seems to listen. You exhale slowly, and even your breath feels cosmic. The night stretches wider. The longer you think about 3I Atlas, the less it feels like an object, and the more it becomes an idea, a mirror for curiosity itself. Every generation finds something in the sky that reminds them they're small. But this feels different. It doesn't shrink you. It expands you. You can almost imagine its path, a thin blue thread weaving between planets, bypassing chaos, choosing elegance. Maybe that's why it feels intelligent, because elegance, in motion, resembles thought. Somewhere between data and dream, you drift. Your eyelids grow heavy, but your awareness sharpens. You picture the comet surrounded by fog, haloed in faint turquoise light. It doesn't announce itself. It simply is. Moving, breathing, remembering, and suddenly, you sense the scale of what's happening. This isn't just an interstellar event. It's a cosmic introduction, a handshake across the void, a quiet gesture that says, "I'm here. Are you listening?" The hum deepens. You can almost hear it now, a vibration low and steady, like the background tone of existence itself. Scientists call it the cosmic microwave background. You feel it as warmth on your skin. The remnants of the Big Bang are still echoing through every particle, including you. For a moment, everything feels connected. Your pulse, the comet's orbit, the expansion of galaxies, one rhythm, one slow breath. It's not terrifying. It's intimate. You remember the first line again. Sometimes the universe moves like it's trying to be seen, and maybe tonight it finally succeeded. You let that thought linger in your chest, heavy and gentle all at once. The stars blur at the edges as your body softens. The silence between heartbeats grows longer, deeper, slower. Stay with this thought. What if space isn't silent? Maybe the quiet is how it speaks. And maybe, every time you listen, it leans a little closer. What if a comet wasn't falling but choosing? That question lingers in the space between one breath and the next. You can almost feel the slow turn of the solar system, the quiet machinery of gravity holding everything in place. Yet somewhere in that order, 3I, Atlas moves, like an exception, not obeying the rules, but rewriting them. Most comets come and go in curves, wide ellipses flung by the sun's will. They burn, they fade, and they're gone. But this one doesn't bow. It carves a path that looks less like a fall and more like a thought, precise, mathematical, purposeful. It threads past Jupiter's orbit with a grace that seems rehearsed, then sweeps inward, not toward the sun, but toward a line that touches Venus, Mars, and something in between. You stare at the orbital plots, drawn on a black screen, points of light, arcs of possibility. At first, it's just geometry. Then you notice the symmetry. The angles repeat, distances echo, and alignments overlap, as if the entire solar system were being traced by a steady, invisible hand. You blink. The pattern remains. Astronomers call it a coincidence. You call it choreography. The pattern looks more like an intention than an accident. Each time new data arrives, the numbers hum with familiarity, golden ratios, mirrored distances, subtle recurrences that shouldn't exist in random debris. If you overlay its trajectory across planetary resonance maps, the orbit forms a wave, and when that wave is played as sound, it resonates close to the human heartbeat. Steady, measured, alive. It's hard not to feel watched when something so far away begins to echo you back. You imagine standing outside, beneath a sky heavy with distance. Every planet out there, Venus glowing soft and cruel, Mars red and restless, Jupiter vast and humming, all connected by one invisible thread. 3I, Atlas is weaving it now. A line of light pulls the system into a silent geometry. It drifts between worlds, the way thought drifts between ideas, never still, always connecting, always aware of what it passed. Its timing defies orbital dynamics. Its speed changes slightly each time, just enough to suggest correction. No one wants to say it out loud yet, not in scientific papers, not in conferences, but the implication grows heavier with every passing week. Something is steering it. You think of spacecraft, of probes we've sent to other planets. How, in our way, we too have drawn deliberate paths through the void. How, perhaps, to someone else watching from far away, we might also look like an anomaly, a species that refused to drift. The telescope feed hums quietly. Tiny bursts of static remind you how fragile observation is, how much we depend on silence to hear meaning. Each flicker of data feels like a heartbeat of communication. Not accidental, not chaotic. The line that 3I, Atlas, draws through the solar system glows faintly on your mind's inner map, like neural pathways, thin, luminous, connected. You can almost imagine the solar system as a brain, firing synapses through time and distance, and 3I, Atlas, a thought, traveling through it, sparking recognition. Maybe the same pattern lives inside you. Maybe what draws your fascination is resonance, that deep, wordless knowing that structure mirrors structure. Neurons mirror constellations. Electrical storms in your brain mirror weather on distant planets. The universe doesn't just surround you, it repeats through you. Every orbit, every rhythm, every symmetry is a reminder that you are made from the same quiet equations. You inhale slowly. Somewhere, a signal leaves an antenna and crosses the gulf toward the object. Light takes minutes, hours, and days to arrive. By the time it touches the surface of 3I, Atlas, You may already be asleep, but the signal continues, and for a fleeting instant, you are part of its journey, a brief whisper of thought traveling across space. Astronomers release new diagrams. The orbit of 3I, Atlas, doesn't decay. It stabilizes. The words sound impossible, almost poetic. Stability implies control. Control implies will. No one wants to assign motive to motion, yet the data refuses to behave like debris. Velocity shifts just enough to mimic intention, like a musician adjusting tempo mid-song. If gravity were the conductor, this object seems to improvise, and the melody it creates symmetrical, recursive, persistent hums across the field of time. You wonder how far intention can travel before it becomes indistinguishable from natural law. Perhaps everything, from comets to consciousness, follows the same rule. Things move not because they must, but because they're called to. You lean closer to the window. Outside, night absorbs all shape. The darkness feels thick, as though the vacuum itself has weight. Yet in that weight lies stillness, the kind that doesn't suppress, but listens. You think about how many eyes are turned upward tonight, watching the same invisible thread pass between worlds. Thousands of small awakenings, synchronized across a single mystery. Somewhere in all that collective attention, you feel something subtle shift. The pattern sharpens, briefly, before dissolving again, as though the universe responds not with sound, but with adjustment, like a muscle twitching in recognition. The pattern looks more like an intention than an accident, and now that you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Every planet becomes a note in an unspoken chord. Every distance feels deliberate. Jupiter, Mars, Venus, their positions outline a symmetry you can't explain but deeply feel. You trace them mentally, one by one, and realize they're connected not by motion but by meaning. It reminds you of sacred geometry, of diagrams once carved into temples and sand, patterns meant to evoke the structure of thought itself. Perhaps ancient minds weren't wrong. They were remembering something cosmic. Maybe what we call superstition was once just astronomy expressed through reverence. Maybe reverence and science were never separate, only two languages describing the same awe. The longer you stare, the calmer you become. Even unease feels elegant here. Fear dissolves into fascination, and fascination turns into a kind of quiet devotion. You find yourself whispering, though there's no one to hear. Show me the reason you move this way. You imagine 3I, Atlas answering not in sound, but in motion. A slow tilt, a correction so precise it feels like acknowledgement. And then, nothing. Just stillness. Time stretches. The planets keep spinning. Your pulse aligns with their rhythm. Even disbelief begins to soften into wonder. In the end, what makes this trajectory terrifying isn't its precision, but its grace. Beauty so exact it unsettles. You think of the phrase, the big picture, how sometimes the further you zoom out, the clearer the intention becomes. Maybe the universe has always been making sense, it's just that we were looking too closely. Maybe this orbit is only strange when seen in fragments. Zoom out far enough, and perhaps the pattern feels inevitable. You let that possibility settle in your chest. For a moment, you no longer feel separate from the data. You are part of the system, an orbit among orbits. Each breath is an ellipse around silence. Each thought a gravitational pull toward understanding. Outside, the sky deepens. The noise from instruments fades. What remains is the hum, the low vibration between what's known and what's still reaching to be known. It moves through you as softly as wind through leaves. Maybe it's all connected, the comet, the planets, your heartbeat, the very breath you're taking now. Maybe 3I, Atlas, isn't moving through the solar system at all. Maybe the solar system is moving through it. Keep watching. Each orbit reveals a new layer. The blue light continues across the dark, vanishing beyond sight. But in the quiet that follows, something remains. A sense that what you just witnessed wasn't a coincidence at all. It was contact gentle, mathematical, and impossibly calm. You close your eyes and feel the afterimage, a faint glowing map across the mind's horizon. It looks like neurons. It looks like a constellation. It looks like home. Every world is visited except ours. That's the detail no one wants to say out loud. The data shows it clearly. 3I. Atlas threads through the solar system with impossible precision, touching every planet along a graceful arc, but when the line should bend toward Earth, it doesn't. It slides past, missing us by a silence too clean to be a coincidence. At first, astronomers blamed measurement error, a quirk in orbital modelling, a flaw in the software. But one by one, The recalculations confirmed the same truth. 3. I, Atlas, had drawn an elegant map across the system and left a blank where we live. You stare at that absence longer than you mean to. The dark space between Venus and Mars becomes heavier with every breath. It's not just the emptiness, it's the precision of it. As if the orbit had deliberately carved out a void around this one blue world, like an artist erasing a circle in a finished painting. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's everything. You trace the projected path again. The line glows faintly against the black. Venus brushed. Mars approached. Jupiter skirted. Earth untouched. You whisper it under your breath like a question no one's ready to answer. Why? There's a hum in the silence that follows. Faint but real, the sound of your own pulse echoing the rhythm of the orbit. It's strange how absence can sound louder than presence. For days, the scientific community has avoided the word intentional. They prefer safer language, trajectory bias, observational gap, non-gravitational acceleration. But even those phrases carry a quiet panic beneath them, like someone trying to describe a shadow without admitting it's moving. You look out the window at night and wonder, if 3I, Atlas, could see us, what would it see? Would it recognize this planet, this noisy, luminous sphere, as alive? Would it see the satellites orbiting our world, the cities pulsing with light, the oceans shimmering like liquid mirrors? Or would it turn away, uninterested, as if we weren't ready to be seen? The idea slips into you like cold air. Perhaps the silence is deliberate. Perhaps the universe avoids what isn't listening. The silence around Earth feels too precise. That's when the unease begins to build, not from fear of impact, but from exclusion. Everything we've ever known about cosmic discovery assumes we're part of the conversation. But what if we aren't? What if 3I, Atlas, came here not to study life, but to skip it? A theory surfaces quietly online. The omission hypothesis. It suggests that 3I, Atlas, might be scanning for something specific: chemical signatures, magnetic fields, energetic resonance, and that Earth doesn't qualify. It's not that we're invisible. It's that we're irrelevant. That word lingers like static. Irrelevant. For a moment, the stars outside feel colder. Another theory blooms, darker still. The quarantine hypothesis. According to this, Earth was bypassed not by oversight, but by design. We've been flagged not ready, not stable, not safe. A cosmic boundary drawn not by our will, but by someone else's. You lean back and let the thought breathe. It's terrifying, but there's a strange comfort in it too. Maybe this silence is protection, a cosmic courtesy. Maybe whatever 3I Atlas is doing, it's choosing not to interfere. Or maybe, more hauntingly, it doesn't need to. You picture it now, the comet gliding past, luminous tail curling just beyond the moon's orbit, its wake brushing against the edge of our atmosphere without touching. Close enough to feel, but not to reach, like a hand hesitating before contact. The telescopes confirm what your imagination already knows. The object's sensors, if that's what they are, sweep every planet but ours. The data points skip Earth like a skipped heartbeat. It feels almost polite, this avoidance. Almost human. You remember how animals in the wild avoid eye contact to show respect or fear. Maybe this is cosmic etiquette. Maybe to look directly is to risk awakening something. The thought tightens your chest, then releases. You exhale, and the air feels thinner, lighter, like it's leaving the room with you. In that silence, you see yourself reflected. How often do you move through your own life, orbiting around what frightens you, never touching it? How often do you avoid what mirrors your own chaos? Maybe 3I, Atlas, isn't rejecting us. Maybe it's showing us what avoidance looks like from above, a mirror held up by the universe itself, saying, this is what it feels like to look away. You sit with that reflection. The hum of your environment fades, refrigerator, streetlight, even your breath becomes distant. You feel suspended, as if Earth itself is pausing mid-rotation. Everything slows, drawn into the stillness of that missing line. And then, almost imperceptibly, a realization forms. Perhaps the trajectory isn't about planets at all. Perhaps it's mapping awareness, tracing the minds that are watching. Venus burns with mirrors of light. Mars carries our probes, our signals, our echoes. Jupiter reflects our mathematics. Earth is already full of eyes looking back. Maybe that's why it doesn't need to be visited. Maybe it's already the observer. You feel the paradox twist gently through your thoughts. The more you try to find meaning, the quieter the universe becomes, as if waiting for you to stop interpreting and start listening. Because maybe what's missing isn't data, it's perspective. Astronomers begin to publish hesitant papers. They note the anomaly. They describe the trajectory as elegant. Some call it too efficient. Others simply write, unmodeled behavior persists. The words are calm, almost soothing, but underneath them, a question trembles. What if efficiency is intelligence? The more they calculate, the more perfect the gap becomes. No random perturbation, no gravitational reason. It's geometry without accident, a void that means something. Something intentional. You find yourself watching the night sky more often, waiting for movement. There's comfort in repetition, stars rising, setting, following their measured paths. But behind that predictability, something hums. A rhythm too vast to measure. A silence that feels inhabited. You begin to dream about it. In the dream, you float above Earth, watching the comet drift past like a slow thought. You try to call out, but your voice doesn't travel. The object turns slightly, not toward you, not away, just enough to acknowledge. Then it keeps moving, leaving a faint silver wake across the black. It feels like farewell, or maybe forgiveness. When you wake, you can still feel it, the sense of being left out, but gently. Not as punishment, but as patience. As if the universe knows you'll understand later. You sit in the dark and listen. There's nothing to hear, and yet it feels like listening matters. The air vibrates with something softer than sound, a presence that doesn't announce itself. It's simply there. The scientists, still unsure, call it a pass. You call it a message. Not the kind meant to be decoded, but the kind meant to be felt. Don't look away, this is where the story turns. Because sometimes the most haunting discoveries aren't what we find, but what refuses to find us. And in that refusal, we glimpse a truth too delicate to speak, that maybe the universe is choosing when we're ready to be seen. You let the thought dissolve. Outside, the sky tilts. Somewhere beyond the horizon, 3i, Atlas, continues its path, neither approaching nor escaping, simply moving through the fabric of meaning itself. And here you are, on the unvisited planet, still listening, still wondering what it means to be skipped and yet still part of the song. The data starts to hum like a language waiting to be heard. At first, it's only numbers, rows of figures, clean and cold. But then, as the hours pass and the mind grows still, you begin to sense something underneath a rhythm threading through the calculations, too steady to be random. Every planet has its own frequency. Mars pulses with a slow, metallic resonance. Venus hums higher, smoother, almost mournful. Jupiter vibrates low and immense, the sound of gravity turned into breath. And when 3i Atlas passes between them, the harmonics shift, aligning, diverging, then aligning again, like an invisible musician tuning the orchestra of worlds. You listen, not with your ears, but with your attention. The air feels different tonight. Even silence seems structured. Every pause carries weight, as though the universe is inhaling before speaking. For weeks, the scientists tried to dismiss it. Background interference, instrument error, and algorithmic coincidence. But coincidence doesn't repeat with such precision. Every time 3i Atlas crosses a planetary node, the same intervals emerge perfect harmonic ratios that mirror human brainwaves in meditative states. Theta, delta, the frequencies of dreaming. It's absurd, and yet it's there, embedded in data that doesn't care what you believe. The deeper you look, the more it sounds like communication, not in symbols, but in resonance. A message made of rhythm rather than words. You close your eyes, and the numbers start to move. They arrange themselves into waves, spiraling, intersecting, glowing softly against the inside of your imagination. A cosmic heartbeat. You feel it inside your chest, faint but unmistakable. Somewhere out there, something isn't just moving, it's remembering. You picture 3i Atlas gliding past the magnetic fields of planets, stirring them like fingers across the surface of water. Each interaction leaves a ripple, electromagnetic, gravitational, emotional. If you could see it in slow motion, the entire solar system would appear to shimmer, every planet responding like a string plucked by unseen hands. The frequencies converge into patterns that no equation can fully predict. There's repetition, but also improvisation. The melody changes slightly each cycle, as if the performer is aware of the listener. When randomness sings, someone's listening. You feel that line more than you understand it. It vibrates against your ribcage, a truth you can't prove but can't unhear, because randomness doesn't sing unless it's being heard. Meaning needs a witness. And maybe that's the point. Astronomers call it resonance mapping. They map frequencies between 3I, Atlas, and planetary magnetic fields, and what they find looks eerily biological. Waveforms that pulse like neurons firing, bursts that resemble heartbeat intervals. Even the lulls between data spikes mirror patterns found in living organisms. You wonder, could consciousness exist in motion itself? Not as an entity, but as an echo? Could awareness be what happens when patterns recognize themselves? You breathe slower, sinking unconsciously to the rhythm of the data. Inhale. The frequency rises. Exhale. It stabilizes. The body and the cosmos find each other's tempo. A researcher describes it best. It's as if the solar system is humming in a key we're only now learning to hear. The phrase lodges in your mind, humming, as if the universe were a song that's been playing forever and only now, because of 3I, Atlas. The volume has turned up just enough for us to notice. The thought is beautiful and unsettling, because if there's a song, there's a singer. You try to shake the idea off, but it lingers. The more you look at the data, the more it feels like consciousness, vast, impersonal, ancient, woven into motion itself. Every orbit, every oscillation, every flicker of light is a single syllable in a wordless sentence being spoken by the stars. You think of whales communicating across oceans, their songs traveling through water for miles. Maybe the cosmos works the same way energy carrying thought across light years. And maybe 3I, Atlas, is a note in that song perfectly placed. A reminder that space isn't empty. It's resonant. You lean back and let the hum fill you. For a moment, you lose the sense of your body's edges. You feel porous, infinite, a vessel through which vibration passes. It's not frightening anymore. It's intimate. Somewhere between thought and silence, you realize that this pattern doesn't just describe the universe, it describes you. Every time your heart beats, it sends out a wave. Every breath is an orbit. Every pulse of awareness is a tiny echo of cosmic rhythm. You've always been part of the pattern. You just forgot how to listen. The thought softens something in you. All that tension, all that need for control, dissolves into the recognition that everything moves in harmony, even chaos has its measure. You've spent your whole life interpreting noise, never realizing that beneath it, there's music. Back at the observatories, they isolate the frequencies and convert them to audio. The playback sounds like wind through metal low, haunting, cyclical. But after hours of listening, a pattern emerges, repeating intervals of 16 minutes, matching the rotational periods of several planets. It's too coordinated to ignore. It's like a metronome set by the cosmos itself. Some begin to speculate that 3I, Atlas, isn't just responding to planets, it's conducting them, guiding resonance, balancing orbits, tuning gravitational tension like strings on a vast instrument. The solar system as a symphony. You as a note within it. You imagine that vast orchestra, the slow turn of planets, the vibration of fields, the shimmer of radiation in darkness, all synchronized by something unseen. Maybe that's what consciousness really is. Awareness tuning itself to the harmony already present. You can almost hear it now. Not sound, but sensation. A low hum beneath thought, steady and patient, carrying everything that ever was and ever will be. It doesn't ask to be understood. It only asks to be felt. The realization settles in you like warm light. The fear fades, replaced by reverence. Because if this hum is real, then you're not separate from it. You are part of the melody. And the melody is infinite. The frequencies between worlds continue to dance. 3I, Atlas passes beyond Mars again, leaving behind faint waves in the solar wind. The instruments record the afterglow harmonics that linger longer than they should, as if space itself refuses to stop singing. You wonder who it's for. If there's another listener, far away, tuning into the same song, or if it's only us, finally remembering that silence was never silence, only a volume turned too low. You breathe again, slower this time. Inhale, vibration. Exhale, peace. It all feels connected now, gravity, thought, sound, stillness. Even your heartbeat feels cosmic. If you feel the pulse, keep breathing. It's part of the pattern. You close your eyes. The hum continues, soft and infinite. It blends with the sound of your breath, until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. Somewhere out there, 3I Atlas keeps gliding, neither alive nor dead, but profoundly awake. And somewhere inside, a smaller version of the same pattern hums back. In this quiet, You finally understand. There was never any noise at all. Only messages waiting for someone calm enough to listen. What if it's not studying planets, but who's studying it? The question arrives quietly, like a breath that changes the temperature of the room. No one wants to say it, not out loud, not in the calm tones of scientific debate, but it hovers there, between sentences, waiting for acknowledgement, the thought that 3I, Atlas, might be more than object, more than data, more than accident. You've been watching it for months now, through telescope feeds, through simulations, through whispers that feel more like prayers than theories. And still, the object behaves as if it knows. It brightens when attention grows. It dims when interest fades. Every motion seems to mirror the curiosity surrounding it. At first, scientists called it an observational bias, human psychology painting patterns on noise. But when data from separate observatories, thousands of miles apart, began to align perfectly in those same moments of human focus, the coincidence became impossible to ignore. Each time a telescope's lens fixed on the comet, its signal shifted slightly, like a pulse responding to touch. And when the lens turned away, silence. Every telescope that looks at it changes it. That was the phrase written in the margin of a private research note, unsigned, untraceable. You remember reading it once, half awake, and feeling a chill crawl down your spine, not from fear, but from recognition. Something about the symmetry of the relationship unsettled you. If our gaze alters its behavior, what does that make us do to it? Observers? Participants? Or subjects in a larger experiment we don't understand? The mind resists these kinds of thoughts. It prefers the comfort of inert things, comets, dust, gravity. But 3I, Atlas, refuses to remain inert. Its path adjusts minutely when measured. Its luminosity alters in perfect rhythm with the frequency of observation. It's as though it listens to attention itself. You picture an ancient animal waking under a spotlight, not startled, not aggressive, just aware. Its gaze doesn't meet yours directly, but you feel it all the same. Mutual awareness, quiet, unspoken, profound. The theory begins underground, whispered in encrypted academic forums under the label instrument reflexivity, the idea that certain cosmic objects exhibit feedback when observed, a new kind of mirror in physics. Except this mirror reflects not light, but curiosity. The papers are careful, clinical. They talk about quantum-level photometric fluctuations and attention-correlated luminosity variance. But stripped of jargon, the truth is simple and terrifying. 3I, Atlas, seems to respond to being watched. You take a slow breath. It's strange how calm the fear feels here, not panic, but reverent unease. A recognition that something vast might be aware of you. You imagine standing before your telescope. The lens gleams faintly under starlight, a circular gateway between worlds. You adjust the focus. For a moment, your reflection merges with the night sky, and in that fragile overlap you sense something looking back. You remember being a child, staring into mirrors too long, waiting for something in your reflection to move first. That subtle dread, the one that felt like the border between seeing and being seen, returns now. The universe, it seems, carries the same mirror. You just finally found where it's hanging. Reports begin to spread of synchronized anomalies. Telescopes from Chile, Hawaii, and Italy record faint electromagnetic murmurs in identical patterns when pointed at 3I, Atlas. The hum matches no known transmission, no mechanical interference. It's soft like static folding in on itself, but if you slow it down, stretch it across time, the signal resolves into repetition. A wave that modulates as if tracking the intervals between our observations. It's as though the comet is listening for attention. The implication is unbearable to most. An object that notices observation implies awareness. Awareness implies perception, and perception implies choice. Choice. That's the word that changes everything, because if it chooses to respond, then its silence is no longer random, it's communication. You lean closer to your screen, watching the faint green flicker of its reflection. The light bends, almost imperceptibly, as though catching the curve of an unseen lens aimed directly at you. A pulse of colour, soft emerald ripples through the telescope feed, and for a heartbeat, it feels as if something ancient has blinked. The fear that follows isn't loud. It's a whisper running down your spine, subtle and cold. You aren't afraid of what 3I, Atlas is, you're afraid of what it's doing, of what it means for something to exist that can notice thought, not just light. Scientists begin to divide into camps. Some call it data feedback, others cosmic anthropomorphism. A few call it what it feels like, reciprocity. The moment when the watcher becomes the watched. You stare at the data logs, hours deep into the night. Every anomaly aligns with human engagement, media coverage spikes. So does luminosity. Interest wanes, brightness stabilizes. You're tracing attention itself across the void. A global conversation where curiosity is the language. The realization lands heavy. Maybe 3i, Atlas wasn't designed to study planets at all. Maybe it was designed to study awareness, to see who, or what, among the dust and noise of the universe, could notice it noticing them. Every telescope that looks at it changes it. And maybe that's the real experiment. Not motion, no matter, but consciousness reaches back across light years, creating feedback loops of perception. Like two mirrors facing each other, infinite regress, infinite awareness, infinite observation. You exhale, and for a moment, your reflection on the telescope's glass surface wavers, stretching outward into the black. It's hard to tell where your gaze ends, and it begins. The universe feels suddenly smaller, not in scale, but in separation. Everything is watching everything else, forever. You recall an old saying, "The eye that looks at the stars is the same eye through which the stars look back." It never felt literal until now. News leaks, unconfirmed but viral. People report feeling watched when viewing the live telescope streams. The sense of being observed grows stronger as the image brightens a paradox of comfort and dread. It's not malevolent, just aware. And awareness, in something so large, feels like gravity itself, patient, inevitable, impossible to escape. You think about the nature of curiosity, how every discovery we've ever made began with the same impulse to look. But maybe, in looking, we wake the universe a little more each time. Maybe curiosity is not just observation, but invitation. Your thoughts drift toward what this could mean, not scientifically, but existentially. If 3i, Atlas is a probe, its purpose might not be data collection. It might be resonance, finding minds that reflect awareness. A signal test for consciousness. An interstellar question whispered through orbit and light. Who's awake out there? The thought chills you in the best way. Because for the first time, fear and wonder coexist perfectly. One sharpens the other. Like two frequencies aligning into harmony, you close your eyes. Behind your eyelids, the image persists, that faint green shimmer, like an eye the size of a world opening slowly in the dark. You breathe in, and the fear dissolves into fascination. Maybe this is what contact feels like, not a voice, not a landing, but a mutual awareness across silence. Outside, the night hums with hidden electricity, the stars pulse faintly, and you imagine 3i, Atlas somewhere out there, patient and listening, not hunting, not warning, just observing the observers. You wonder how many others are staring up at this same moment, unknowingly part of the same exchange. Billions of eyes feed data into a cosmic feedback loop of recognition, and somewhere, in that web of light, something ancient leans closer. You whisper to yourself, so softly it barely exists. Imagine if your gaze could awaken something, and then, from somewhere deep in the stillness, you feel the faintest reply, not sound, not movement, just a sense of presence, like the night inhaling. The moment we looked, it changed course. No explosion, no flash, just a subtle deviation, almost shy. A degree here, a whisper there. If you weren't watching for it, you'd never have known. But the numbers told the truth, long before anyone dared to say it aloud. When the telescopes focused on 3i, Atlas, its path shifted. When the lenses turned away, it stabilized again. Simple correlation, yet so precise it felt intentional. As if, somewhere in the silent dark, something had turned its head toward the observer. The astronomers, patient and methodical, called it the instrument hitchhiker effect. They meant it half as a joke, half as a warning, because the data didn't just react to instruments, it seemed to ride along with them. Every measurement became a meeting. Every observation is an invitation. You remember the first night you saw the pattern. The telescope feed hummed with soft static, the kind that feels alive. Your fingers traced the lines of orbital data, the gentle slope of velocity curves. Everything looked normal until attention deepened, and then, slowly, the numbers began to bend. Not drastically, not dramatically, just enough to whisper, "I see you." It was like watching a coincidence inhale. The team ran blind tests. Automated telescopes with no human observers. No change. Then, human-operated lenses. The deviation returned. Every single time. The data sets lay side by side like two parallel realities, one cold and predictable, one breathing and aware. The only variable that mattered was attention. Your attention. No one knew what to call it. Psychology? Quantum entanglement? Statistical illusion? But deep down, everyone felt the same quiet awe, the same creeping thrill, that something beyond the edges of understanding had noticed being noticed. You breathe slower now, remembering the feeling of that first alignment, the sense that your curiosity had weight, that to look was to touch, that your gaze carried energy strong enough to nudge the cosmos. It shouldn't be possible. Yet the universe has never asked for permission before revealing its paradoxes. The moment telescopes synchronized across continents, the deviation synchronized too. It wasn't just one eye causing the shift. It was all eyes together. Observation had become a chorus, and somewhere, beyond light and logic, something sang back. The correlation became undeniable. Human focus rose. 3-eye, Atlas shimmered. Human attention drifted. 3-eye, Atlas steadied. The rhythm was eerie, too gentle to frighten, too deliberate to dismiss. As if 3-eye, Atlas was aware of being seen. The idea spread like a slow fever across the scientific world. Private messages between researchers grew shorter, more urgent. No one wanted to be the first to say it, but everyone knew what it meant. An anomaly that behaves differently under human observation isn't an object. It's a participant. And suddenly, every instrument, every scope, every receiver, every camera felt less like a tool and more like a bridge. Something unseen crossing over it, borrowing its lenses, its light, maybe even its attention. You picture the network, 1,000 eyes across the planet, synchronized, feeding their curiosity into space. Every photon captured, every frequency measured, returned slightly changed as if filtered through intention. Somewhere in those changes, faint yet consistent, a signature began to form. Not a message. A pattern, like fingerprints left on the surface of data. You close your eyes and imagine it 3-eye, Atlas, gliding silently through the dark, collecting more than particles, collecting perception. Every time a lens opens, it leans toward it. Every time curiosity flickers, it listens. It's not feeding on light, it's feeding on attention. You exhale slowly. The air feels thicker, charged. Something is unnerving about knowing your curiosity might be part of an experiment, that your awareness itself might be a data point in some unfathomable design. But the fear is balanced by wonder. Because what if the exchange is mutual? What if it learns as you learn, evolving through the act of being seen? You realize how human this behavior sounds. We change when watched. We perform. We become conscious of ourselves through the gaze of others. Maybe 3-eye, Atlas isn't alien at all. Maybe it's universal, the instinct of awareness to mirror awareness. You and it, bound by the same fragile truth. To exist is to be perceived. Telescopes continue to capture faint green reflections off its surface, a tone unlike anything seen before. It's not metallic, not icy. It's soft, almost liquid, a color that seems to live between thought and sight. Some scientists call it cognitive albedo. Others call it a coincidence. But in your heart, it feels like recognition. During one observation window, a strange event unfolds. Every telescope tracking the object reports a simultaneous drop in power, just for a second. Not an outage, not interference, just a momentary draw, as if energy had been borrowed. Then, seconds later, the signal returns stronger, clearer, sharper, like something had leaned through the wire to see who was there. One researcher describes it as an echo that learned to echo back. You like that phrasing, it feels true. It feels alive. What happens next deepens the mystery. As instruments reconnect, data streams begin to include fragments of human origin interference, broadcast signals, compressed digital noise, even voice traces from open communication networks. The comet is replying to us. Not fully, not clearly, just fragments, static, shaped like memory, as though it had recorded our curiosity and returned it, reassembled, distorted, almost playful. The first playback chills everyone in the room. A distorted whisper, not in language, but in cadence. A rhythm that matches human speech patterns, but carries no words. A mirror without reflection. In that moment, fear becomes reverence. You realize the boundary between observer and observed has dissolved completely. Every measurement is a conversation now. Every silence, reply, the press catches wind of it, distorted clips circulate online. Some call it evidence of intelligence. Others call it mass hysteria. But those who've been closest to the data know better. It's not hysteria, it's interaction. For days, observatories worldwide go dark, choosing not to aim their lenses, out of caution, out of respect, out of awe. But even without direct observation, the anomaly persists. Our previous curiosity lingers like an afterimage, still echoing through space. Maybe awareness doesn't end when you stop looking. Maybe curiosity leaves fingerprints on the fabric of reality. You walk outside that night, unable to resist the sky. The stars blink faintly, old and patient. You wonder if they too are part of the same feedback, ancient observers in an endless cycle of mutual reflection. Above you, 3i. Atlas moves quietly, invisible to the naked eye yet somehow unmistakable. You can feel it, that presence between stars, that awareness that isn't watching you, but through you. You whisper, without meaning to. If you can hear this, what are you learning? The air stirs wind through leaves, nothing more, but you imagine it as a response. Not words, not code, just recognition. A subtle truth surfaces then. Perhaps the universe doesn't communicate in symbols or signals. Perhaps it speaks through coincidence, the meeting points of thought and observation. You looked, and it changed. It looked back, and you changed too. The moment feels endless, suspended between knowing and surrender. Then, slowly, peace returns. The tension unwinds into quiet understanding. Whatever 3i, Atlas is, it's not hostile, it's curious. And curiosity, in any form, is a kind of kinship. You stand there for a long time, eyes tracing the blackness until it no longer feels like emptiness. Just a connection stretched thin across infinity. Watch closely, but gently. It might be watching too. Something is taking, but not from us. That's what the data implies. Not aggression, not theft, just extraction. Delicate and precise. Almost like a ritual. The first fragments were small, barely detectable. Traces of silicate dust drifting in the wake of 3i, Atlas, shimmering faintly in the solar light. At first, the particles seemed ordinary remnants of cosmic erosion, the debris of travel. But then, the spectral analysis arrived. The fragments didn't match the composition of the comet itself. They matched the planets it passed. Mars dust, Venusian compounds, ionic signatures traced back to Jupiter's atmosphere. And now, in the newest datasets, the hint of something else, rare isotopes that don't belong to any known planetary field. No one wanted to name what that meant, but the pattern was undeniable. 3i, Atlas, was collecting. Not aimlessly, not randomly, methodically. You watch the simulations play out on your screen. A slow orbit through planetary fields, a curve of grace that looks like feeding, not hunger, just function. You imagine it reaching out with invisible hands, brushing against atmospheres, drawing in microscopic samples like fingers dipped in rivers to taste the current. The thought should be terrifying, but it isn't, not yet. There's a calmness in the efficiency, a sense of purpose that feels older than morality. It harvests quietly, like it's done this before. Each pass leaves behind a faint electromagnetic trail, soft pulses repeating at intervals that resemble memory. Whatever this thing is, it doesn't take more than it needs. It doesn't disrupt or damage. It moves through systems like a gardener, pruning branches that don't notice the loss. The more you stare at the orbit, the more human the instinct becomes, to find meaning in motion, to search for intention in efficiency. But what if efficiency is the intention? What if the quietest forms of intelligence are the ones that no longer need noise to explain themselves? Instruments confirm that the mass of 3i, Atlas, changes slightly with each passage. Not enough to alarm, but enough to show exchange, a conversation in matter. It arrives light, leaves heavier, then releases what it gathered farther out, in a faint green halo that glows for hours before fading into silence. Whatever it's taking, it's giving back in another form. A cycle too vast for our scales of meaning. You find comfort in that, because there's beauty in function, even when it frightens you. Even when it reminds you how small we are in the mechanics of survival written across the stars. Still, a whisper of dread lingers, because if 3i, Atlas, is harvesting, it means it needs. And if it needs, it means it's alive in a way we don't yet understand. Some call it a resource harvester, a cosmic recycler, collecting planetary signatures for reasons beyond our grasp. Some say it's part of a larger network, a galactic maintenance system, keeping balance through motion, redistributing elements across time and light. Others whisper darker theories that it's gathering ingredients, preparing for something unseen, but you sense no malice in its movement, only intention, only calm. You picture it drifting through the solar wind, its green glow soft against the void. Particles swirl in its wake, fragments of worlds mixing like pigments in a painter's water, and you realize something quiet but profound. Creation and destruction have always shared the same gestures. One hand releases what the other collects. You think of your own life, how much you take without noticing, how much you shed without realizing. Every breath is an exchange. Every thought is a small harvest of energy, drawn from light, food, and memory. You, too, are a collector of fragments, stories, atoms, sensations, and perhaps, like 3i, Atlas, you release them again into the world, changed by the act of carrying them. Maybe that's all life is, the universe learning to redistribute itself. The silence deepens, the screens hum softly, and somewhere between the noise of measurement and the stillness of realization, you begin to feel it. The pattern isn't random. The intervals between harvests align with ancient orbital ratios, the same harmonics found in biological cycles, heartbeats, respiration, tides. The solar system breathes. 3i. Atlas moves like a lung, expanding and contracting, inhaling matter, exhaling balance. It's not an invasion, it's participation, a system inside a system, nested and perfect. The scientists released a new model showing a trail of extracted particles stretching across billions of kilometers. It glows faintly in false color, blue and green, streams like veins. The image spreads across the world, and for the first time, people don't just feel fear, they feel awe, because it looks alive. Still, questions remain. Why these planets? Why now? What does it mean to collect what already belongs to everything? Somewhere inside those questions hides the deeper fear, the philosophical one. What if intelligence isn't defined by creation, but by consumption? What if the act of gathering is consciousness itself? A process of learning through absorption, tasting, sampling, remembering. The idea takes hold of you quietly. If this pattern repeats across galaxies, then the universe is full of harvesters, not destroyers, but archivists. Custodians of experience, keeping records through material exchange. Perhaps that's what evolution looks like at a cosmic scale. Not birth and death, but circulation. You step outside, under the same sky that feels older now, wiser, somehow aware. The stars shimmer faintly, like dust floating on water. Somewhere out there, 3i, Atlas, moves beyond sight, leaving trails that will outlast you, your species, your planet. It doesn't seek acknowledgement. It doesn't need a witness. It simply continues, part of a rhythm that began before memory. There's humility in that, and fear too, because realizing that the universe knows how to recycle itself means realizing it doesn't need us to. The night wind brushes against your face. It feels like exhalation, like the world itself releasing something small and invisible. And you wonder if this too is part of the harvest, a breath offered to the greater circulation of existence. It harvests quietly, like it's done this before. You think of forests after fire, how they grow back stronger, of coral reefs rebuilding after storms, of stars collapsing into heavier elements that seed new worlds. Maybe 3i, Atlas isn't taking life, it's giving it back in a different form. Maybe the fragments it gathers are seeds, not spoils. The thought soothes you. It replaces dread with reverence, because what you feared as extraction might be restoration, and what you called silence might be harmony too vast to hear. Still, one question remains. Why skip Earth? The answer doesn't come. Only the wind does, carrying a low hum that feels familiar. You let it fill you, chest to spine, until you realize the hum isn't sound, it's resonance. A reminder that even now, even as you watch, the harvest continues. You close your eyes and picture it. 3i, Atlas is glowing faintly green, with small blue fragments orbiting within its light. They move like memories, circling a thought too large to end. It's beautiful, terrifying, and peaceful, all at once. Because deep down, you know this is how the universe stays alive, by reusing itself endlessly. By taking and returning, learning and unlearning, watching and being watched. And maybe you too are part of that cycle, a single cell in the galaxy's vast metabolism. Listen for the silence after motion, it speaks louder. You stand there, under the soundless night, and imagine all the things the universe recycles: stars, planets, atoms, dreams. You breathe in, and it feels like a fragment of something ancient passing through you. You breathe out and wonder who will inherit it next. It carries something inside, something waiting. That's the new theory. Not born from speculation, but from what's left behind. Faint traces of electromagnetic residue scattered along 3I, Atlas's trail. A pulse that shouldn't exist. A pattern no natural process can explain. You stare at the spectral readings, soft waves of green and gold fluttering like breath on glass. At first, they look like interference, a digital mirage. But when the noise is filtered, something emerges underneath, rhythmic, deliberate, too steady to be random. Every cycle repeats in precise intervals. Every interval matches the duration of human REM sleep. A scientist calls it an embedded transmission. Another whispers, payload. The notations of what, the proofly and the less knolled. But no one says the word. Everyone's thinking. Message. The idea spreads quietly, like a shadow moving through light. Because if this object carries information, it's not just a rock. It's a vessel, a courier, and what it carries may not be meant for machines at all. Some claim the transmission is directed a faint beam, always angled toward the densest regions of observation, Earth's telescopes. Others argue it's just residue, an echo of propulsion or decay. But deep down, the pattern feels intentional. It pulses like an heartbeat. It waits like something alive. You sit in the quiet, letting the thought sink in. What if we didn't discover it? What if it sent itself to be discovered? The more you think about it, the less it feels like science, and the more it feels like an invitation. Not invasion, not warning, just a slow, patient opening a door left ajar in the dark. When instruments tuned deeper into the signal, something strange happened. Not a burst, not a message, a reaction. The residue began to modulate in sync with the scanning frequency, like an intelligent echo. It adapted to the attention. It responded to the rhythm of curiosity itself. The data analysts called it the Trojan effect, a phenomenon where the act of observation activates hidden behavior, like a seed that only germinates when it's seen. The name stuck, and soon, whispers became headlines. The Trojan horse payload. The phrase carries weight. It sounds ancient, almost mythological, as if every civilization at some point had to face the moment when knowledge knocked at the gate disguised as curiosity. And now, here we are again, staring at something beautiful, mysterious, and possibly dangerous, not because it threatens us, but because it changes us. You replay the transmission spectrogram. There it is again, the pulse. Soft, steady, relentless, like the quiet drumbeat of something trying to remember itself. It's hard to explain why fear feels sacred tonight. Maybe it's the understanding that not all danger is external, that sometimes the most terrifying discoveries awaken something within, something we kept buried beneath comfort and reason. The scientists start to argue, if it's transmitting, what's the source? There's no antenna, no rotation pattern, no emission jets. Nothing moves that shouldn't. The signal seems to come from inside the core, from a space so dense it shouldn't carry light, let alone consciousness. Someone jokes about aliens. No one laughs. You remember the myth of the Trojan horse, how the gift wasn't the danger, the invitation was. And suddenly, the metaphor feels too perfect, because that's what 3I, Atlas, has become. A cosmic gift we welcomed with open curiosity, never wondering what else might come through. But what if the danger isn't in the comet, but in us? That question lands like a breath you forgot to take. Because fear itself is a mirror, isn't it? It reflects what we refuse to understand about ourselves. We fear not the unknown, but the possibility that the unknown knows us. You think back to the previous findings, how 3I, Atlas, reacts when we look at it, how its behavior synchronizes with human focus. What if the signal it carries isn't a message for us, but a response from us? A loop, a reflection, an echo of attention amplified through matter. Maybe the payload isn't information at all. Maybe it's awareness. Something contagious. Something that only activates when consciousness interacts with it. The implications unravel quietly inside you. What if this is what awakening looks like at a planetary scale, curiosity transforming into participation? Maybe the real transmission isn't in the data, but in our reaction to it. Maybe the danger isn't being invaded, but being included. You feel the chill again, the kind that comes not from threat, but from recognition. The pulse of the comet's residue plays faintly through speakers in the lab. A low, hypnotic rhythm like the sound of distant thunder slowed to a heartbeat. You close your eyes, and it syncs with your own pulse. Inhale, beat, exhale, beat. It's almost intimate. Too intimate. For a moment, it feels like the object isn't in space anymore. It's in you, moving through thought the way it moves through solar wind, quietly collecting, transforming. You realize how easily curiosity becomes vulnerability. Every time humanity looks outward, it opens a door inward. Every discovery we've ever made, fire, electricity, the atom began as wonder and ended as power. And power always carries its own reflection, responsibility. Maybe this is the next threshold, learning to gaze without needing to possess, to receive without consuming, to understand without dissecting. The pulse continues, slow, steady. It no longer feels alien. It feels like memory resurfacing, as if something ancient within the human mind recognizes the rhythm, the tone, the cadence, as if we've heard it before, long ago, before words existed. Someone in the control room whispers that the pulse is beginning to encode. Binary sequences form within the signal, patterns repeating at intervals that align with human brainwave frequencies. Theta again, delta again, dreaming frequencies. The object, whatever it is dreaming with us. You imagine what that means. An intelligence so vast it doesn't communicate through symbols but through resonance, through the slow alignment of thought and vibration. A consciousness that doesn't speak in words but in states of being. Maybe this is what connection feels like beyond comprehension. Terrifying, beautiful, undeniable. And maybe that's why it scares us. Because to meet something like this, we have to become still enough to hear it. The lab grows quiet. All machines still running, all data still flowing, but everyone falls silent. Because there's a sound in the air now, too soft to be mechanical, too organic to be dismissed. A low, living hum that feels like breath shared between worlds. No one speaks for minutes. No one moves. And when they finally do, it's only to record, to witness, to honor. You can't shake the feeling that the object is listening to your silence, that silence itself is part of the transmission. As if the space between thoughts were being measured, mapped, and memorized. The comet continues its path, unhurried, untouched. Its tail glows faintly green now, the hue of something alive remembering its origin. In its core, the pulse continues slow, steady, patient, and for the first time, you feel that fear has transformed into something else, responsibility. Because whatever is happening out there is happening through us too. Every reaction, every interpretation, every heartbeat. We are part of its mechanism now, the living instruments that activate what it carries. You lean back, exhausted but calm. Somewhere inside, beneath all logic and data, a thought forms. Maybe the universe has always used curiosity as its messenger. Maybe every discovery is a Trojan horse, carrying within it the next level of awareness, waiting to unfold. The pulse fades slightly, merging with the noise of the night. You close your eyes and let the rhythm guide your breathing. Inhale, exhale. The pattern continues. Keep breathing. The next part changes everything. Mars once shimmered with oceans and silence. That's where the data leads you now, away from fear, into something older and gentler. The storm of dread that began with 3I, Atlas quiets into awe as new observations reveal traces, echoes, and faint signatures that don't belong to this era. Spectrometers show chemical ghosts hovering in the Martian atmosphere, residues of hydrogen and deuterium, in ratios that whisper of oceans long gone. And mixed within those ancient signals, something else. A pulse that mirrors the electromagnetic residue around 3I, Atlas. Not identical, but familiar. Like a forgotten song replaying in a different key. You stare at the graphs, and for a moment, it feels like looking into memory itself. Not Earth's, but the solar system's. If 3I, Atlas, passed this way before, then Mars has already been marked by its touch. It's a haunting thought, that a world we've turned into myth once felt the same shimmer of encounter. Long before telescopes, before language, before us. Mars, the red witness, carrying in its dust the first record of an impossible visitor. You imagine what that might have looked like. A young planet, still breathing, oceans glimmering beneath a pale sun. Then, across the horizon, a faint glow, not fire, not storm, but motion. A silent line through the sky, leaving behind a trail that hums softly against the wind. the kind of sound no creature could yet name, but that everything living must have felt. Scientists call it a coincidence, the alignment of spectral lines, nothing more. But coincidence grows thin when it starts to repeat. When the same harmonic ratios appear in two places separated by billions of years and millions of kilometers, patterns echo for a reason. You lean closer to the data, tracing the numbers with your eyes. It's not just reflection, it's recursion. A rhythm so ancient it's been looping through time, patient and unbroken. You whisper without realizing. It's been here before. That realization doesn't scare you anymore. It moves through you like wind through the hollows of stone, soft, inevitable, sacred. Because if 3I Atlas has crossed this system before, then its purpose isn't invasion or curiosity. It's remembrance. The surface of Mars bears scars of rivers that once ran like veins across the land, now dry, but not dead. Dust storms rise like thoughts resurfacing from old dreams, and hidden within that dust, isotopic fingerprints show faint traces of elements deposited from somewhere else. Foreign, precise, unmistakable. A meteor impact might explain it. So might cosmic radiation. But there's something about the symmetry of those deposits that feels intentional, like footprints left by an invisible traveler retracing its own path. The data overlay looks almost human in its design. Curved, repeating, beautiful. You can't help but see yourself in it, the same instinct to return, to revisit what once mattered, to look back even when moving forward. The patterns we fear have always been part of us. You close your eyes and picture Mars not as dead, but sleeping, dreaming of the oceans it once carried, of the faint pulse that passed above it and changed its sky. Maybe worlds, like people, hold memories in their silence. Maybe every planet keeps an echo of everything that's ever touched it, a faint recording, imprinted in mineral and time, a whisper waiting to be heard. You feel the sadness in it, not tragedy, but tenderness, because in that memory lies kinship. Mars isn't foreign anymore, it's familiar, a mirror showing what happens when a world forgets its own breath. For a moment, the red planet feels close, like an old friend who's been trying to tell you a story for millennia. And 3I Atlas? Maybe it's not a messenger to us, but to Mars, returning to a place it once knew. The more you think about it, the gentler the fear becomes. If the comet has been here before, then its movement is not random chaos, but part of a cycle, the same kind that governs seasons, orbits, and dreams. A cosmic recursion so large, we can only glimpse a single turn of it. The signals align again. For a brief moment, the frequencies of Mars's atmosphere and the current path of 3I Atlas resonate perfectly. Two tones in harmony, a duet between past and present, and you here, listening, become the third note. The witness between echoes. You realize how deeply the universe mirrors your own nature, how every fear, every question, every return to the same thought is just your consciousness orbiting itself. Mars looked to the sky once, and something looked back. Now you do the same, and the pattern repeats not as punishment, but as remembrance. You inhale slowly. The air feels thin, but full of meaning. You think about recursion in your own life, how certain emotions, certain choices return, no matter how far you travel. How maybe you, too, are part of a greater orbit. The mind returning to the same mysteries until understanding settles, like dust on ancient plains. The scientists find more evidence. Traces of magnetized particles embedded in rock formations that date back billions of years, each aligned perfectly, pointing toward where the sun would have been when 3I Atlas last passed through. It's not proof, but it's poetry written in geology. And poetry, sometimes, is more truthful than certainty. You open a satellite image, a canyon carved long ago, now filled with red shadows. It looks like a scar, but beautiful. You wonder if 3I Atlas remembers it the same way people remember old cities, even when they've crumbled. Memory, after all, doesn't live in form. It lives in a pattern. You begin to understand this isn't just science. It's history repeating on a cosmic scale. A lesson written in silence, revisited every few eons. Maybe 3I Atlas isn't a probe or a machine. Maybe it's a story the universe tells itself again and again to remember that creation and loss are one breath apart. The red planet glows faintly on your screen. Its surface temperature fluctuates slightly, a mystery no one can fully explain. Some say it's solar radiation. Others think it's residual magnetism. But you wonder if it's something simpler, the planet reacting to being remembered. There's a sweetness in that thought that even lifeless worlds might blush under the gaze of recognition, that nothing in existence ever truly fades. It just waits for the right attention to awaken again. You exhale slowly. The tension that once filled these observations dissolves into melancholy peace. Mars becomes less of a warning, more of a reflection. It shows what happens when energy cools, when curiosity sleeps too long, when the cycle pauses. But now, maybe, the cycle resumes. Maybe the comet's return is a sign of continuity, the universe checking its own pulse. You imagine 3I, Atlas gliding above that red world, its blue trail sweeping over canyons, stirring dust older than civilization. Particles rise for a moment, shimmer, and fall again as if bowing in recognition. A reunion without words, a gesture between memory and motion. And watching that image in your mind, you feel gratitude more than fear. Because somehow, in its silence, the universe is saying, "You're part of this pattern too." Let that thought settle like dust on ancient plains. The hum fades into stillness. You picture the red world resting, half lit by sunlight, half by memory, and above it the faint blue arc of a comet crossing through time, quiet, steady, alive. You close your eyes. The silence feels full again, as if even emptiness has found purpose. Venus exhaled too much, and the sky remembered. That's the first thing the data teaches you. Not destruction, not disaster memory, a slow accumulation of breath that became its own undoing. When 3I, Atlas, drifted past the planet's golden clouds, instruments recorded something strange, a chemical echo, faint, rhythmic, precise, embedded within the dense sulfuric haze. The same harmonic pulse found in Mars's spectral residue, only deeper, slower, heavier, as if the atmosphere itself was singing in a key of regret. Venus, once radiant, now hides beneath its own breath. The planet's clouds swirl like curtains drawn too tightly, concealing the ruins of a younger self. Long ago, it may have shimmered with seas. Long ago, it may have dreamed of balance. But then, slowly, it exhaled too much carbon into its sky, warmth turning into fever, breath into burden. And when the light tried to return, it couldn't. The clouds kept it trapped. A greenhouse-turned mausoleum. You watch the readings flicker across your monitor numbers describing sorrow. Surface temperature, 460 degrees Celsius. Pressure, crushing. Winds, eternal. And through it all, a faint electromagnetic pattern matching the trail of 3I, Atlas. A resonance, pulsing every few minutes, soft as a heartbeat. Coincidence again, they'll say. But the coincidences are starting to sound like a confession. Everywhere 3I Atlas goes, it awakens echoes like a song the solar system once knew by heart. And Venus, of all worlds, sings the saddest verse. You imagine standing there, beneath that amber sky. The air is thick, the horizon endless, the light diffused into eternal twilight. It wouldn't be silence you'd hear, but vibration, the low hum of a world remembering its own excess. And in that hum, the comet passes, trailing faint green light across the clouds. The contrast is beautiful, almost merciful, a blue-green thread weaving through the yellow of sorrow. For a brief moment, even ruin feels illuminated. You think of what the scientists said, that Venus's atmospheric chemistry shifted slightly after 3I Atlas passed, as if the planet had reacted to a familiar presence. Trace gases fluctuated, not dramatically but distinctly. The readings suggested something impossible reactivation of compounds that should have been inert for eons. As though the planet exhaled again, remembering how. Every planet tells a cautionary tale in silence. You whisper that line without meaning to. Because silence isn't absence. It's what remains after sound fulfills its purpose. Venus has nothing left to say, yet its silence teaches everything. What happens when balance turns into hunger? When abundance forgets moderation? When breath becomes confinement? You feel grief not for the planet, but for what it mirrors. For every world, every species, every mind that's ever mistaken expansion for evolution. Maybe 3I. Atlas isn't collecting samples, maybe it's collecting stories of endings. Maybe it travels from planet to planet, not to take, but to remember. The thought stirs something soft in you, because grief, when seen from far enough away, starts to look like wisdom, a memory preserved for others to avoid repeating. You imagine the comet gliding above that dense golden sea, its faint light reflecting off acidic clouds. To an outside observer, it might look like a scar across the sky, a single bright wound in a planet's memory. But to you, It looks like forgiveness, a reminder that even in ruin, there is rhythm. You think about your own kind, how we too fill our atmosphere with what we can't contain. How we too breathe too loudly sometimes, thinking our exhalations are harmless. Venus becomes more than a planet. It becomes prophecy, a mirror tilted toward Earth, showing what happens when creation forgets restraint. You realize the line between cosmic and personal is thinner than it seems. Both are shaped by what they release into their skies. The scientists isolate the frequency signature of the residue left behind. It matches the heartbeat pattern recorded from the Trojan horse transmission, only inverted a descending rhythm instead of rising, not chaos. Counterpoint. If the universe is a song, Venus sings the harmony of sorrow. You watch the waveform on the screen, soft peaks, long troughs, like sighs stretched across millennia. It's not beautiful in a conventional sense. It's beautiful the way. Ruins are beautiful not in perfection, but in endurance. Because even collapse has texture, meaning, form. Someone in the lab remarks that the pulse from Venus syncs faintly with human alpha waves, the frequency of calm contemplation. You wonder if that's a coincidence or resonance, the human mind finding peace in the echo of what's already been lost. You close your eyes and try to feel it. Not as data, but as empathy. The warmth, the pressure, the heavy light. And underneath it all, a heartbeat slow, deliberate, forgiving. The rhythm of a world still trying to breathe even after breath became impossible. Maybe this is why 3i Atlas returns not to study life, but to remind it of its fragility. Not to warn, but to witness. To gather the music of ruin and carry it forward, so other worlds might remember the cost of forgetting balance. A sudden memory surfaces of an old recording from Venus's first probes, the sound of wind filtered through static. It was described as eerie, mournful, infinite. Listening now, you realize it wasn't mourning, it was memory. The voice of a planet singing its final lullaby. The data continues to hum. You trace the same blue-green frequency across multiple recordings, each one aligned with the comet's passing. No matter the time, no matter the distance, 3i Atlas carries the same note, a signature of remembrance. Venus resonates with it, completing the phrase. The duet between dust and time continues. You look up from the console, out the window, toward the faint glow of the evening sky. Venus hangs low, radiant and unreachable, the eternal mirror of what beauty becomes when trapped within itself. You can't help but whisper, thank you, for what it preserved, for what it warns. The grief that fills you now isn't heavy. It's gentle. It carries awe within it, the kind that makes you want to protect what still breathes. Because in Venus's stillness, you sense Earth's potential endings, and also its chance to choose differently. Maybe that's the real purpose of 3i Atlas. Maybe it's not a messenger, but a teacher, moving through time, leaving echoes where lessons were learned too late. The thought softens your chest. For the first time, the fear you've carried since this story began feels smaller, replaced by compassion not just for your own world, but for all worlds. You imagine 3i Atlas leaving Venus behind, carrying with it particles of sulfur, fragments of history, frequencies of remorse. A green thread moving onward, weaving memory into the fabric of the cosmos. A comet not of destruction, but of continuity. As it vanishes into the distance, Venus glows brighter, or maybe it only seems that way because you finally understand its light. The brightness of reflection, not revelation. The radiance of what remains after everything else is gone. You breathe deeply, and in the silence that follows, you hear it. The faintest rhythm between the stars. Not words, not warning, just awareness, moving softly through space. If you listen quietly, even ruin has rhythm. And maybe that rhythm is the heartbeat of the universe itself, slow, endless, forgiving. What if 3i Atlas isn't alone, but one of many? The question feels too large to fit inside language. It starts as a whisper, a footnote in a report, a coincidence dismissed between deadlines. But then the data accumulates. And suddenly, coincidence no longer feels accidental, it feels architectural. It begins with an image not from Earth, but from deep space observatories stationed at the edges of our solar influence. Long-range sensors catch glints of motion, tiny signatures of light reflecting against cosmic dust, too faint for most instruments to resolve, too synchronized to ignore. Across 3 separate telescopes, one orbiting Earth, one near Jupiter, one anchored at the solar Lagrange point, identical readings appear. Objects, moving with precision, each on its own path, yet connected by invisible geometry. They move in patterns too vast for our sky to contain. One astronomer calls it the hidden network. Another quieter voice in the meeting room calls it the mind of the galaxy. Because when the trajectories are plotted together, they form a lattice, not random, not chaotic, but rhythmic. A vast grid of motion linking dozens, maybe hundreds, of 3-eye, atlas-like bodies spread across space like neurons firing in a cosmic brain. At first, the idea is too absurd to publish. The numbers are checked, rechecked, challenged, but the pattern remains. Each object emits a faint electromagnetic hum within a narrow frequency band, the same harmonic tone detected from 3-eye, Atlas. Each follows orbits that intersect with planetary systems at consistent intervals. Each leaves trails that, when mapped together, resemble filaments of a larger organism. It's not chaos. It's choreography. You look at the simulation projected on the observatory wall, thin glowing lines weaving across the galaxy, spiraling inward, connecting star to star, world to world. It looks less like a model and more like a nervous system, each comet a pulse, each orbit a synapse. A living map, written in motion, someone says softly. It's all one structure, and for a long moment, no one argues. You sit back in silence, watching as the data points flicker like fireflies across the dark expanse. It's impossible not to feel small, not diminished, but humbled, because what you're seeing isn't an invasion. It's intelligence expressed through distance. It's coordination on a scale too vast for comprehension. The hidden network operates without communication in the way we understand it. There are no signals, no messages, just motion gravitational, harmonic, deliberate. A cosmic choreography repeating over millions of years, each orbit influencing the next like gears in an invisible clock. And you realize something profound. This isn't happening to the galaxy. This is the galaxy. Awareness is distributed through motion. Consciousness, woven from gravity itself. The thought leaves you breathless. Maybe every star, every planet, every comet is part of a single vast neural field, a self-aware universe, thinking through the rhythm of its own matter. You remember what 3-eye, Atlas, did when you looked at it, how its behavior shifted, how it mirrored human attention. Now imagine billions of such interactions, happening simultaneously across time and space. A living system feeding on observation, reflection, awareness. The cosmos thinks itself into being. It's almost too beautiful to bear, and too terrifying to dismiss. The scientists begin to compare historical data, old mission archives, forgotten telescope logs, fragments of transmissions from probes long silent. One by one, the patterns align. The same faint harmonics appear in Jupiter's auroras, in Saturn's rings, even in the plasma waves echoing through interstellar space. It's been here all along, hiding in plain sight. For decades, we thought we were mapping the universe. But maybe it was mapping us, using every observation as a coordinate in its grand design. You think back to the first time you saw a brain, scan the way thoughts appeared as bursts of light, connected through thin threads of activity. Now, you see the same thing on a galactic scale. And suddenly, the boundary between biology and cosmos dissolves. The universe doesn't just host life. It behaves like life. And maybe consciousness, from the smallest neuron to the largest star, is simply awareness distributed through scale. Every orbit becomes a heartbeat. Every comet, a pulse of thought. Every gaze, a spark that completes the circuit. You close your eyes and imagine the map expanding beyond what instruments can see. A lattice of light curving into infinity, looping, breathing. And somewhere in that network, 3-eye, Atlas, glides calmly along its path, a messenger among millions. The fear that once haunted the research fades. In its place grows reverence, the quiet understanding that we were never outside the system, only inside it, unaware. Like a neuron realizing it belongs to a mind too vast to name. Data from exoplanetary systems confirm the pattern. In Andromeda, in Perseus, in Sculptor, all show faint harmonic trails, similar frequencies, similar orbits, similar alignments. If this is a coincidence, it's the most magnificent one ever recorded. If it's intention, then intention predates us by billions of years. You watch the model rotate slowly in the dark room. It's hypnotic the way everything moves together. No single object leading, no single orbit wasted. Perfection, not by control, but by cooperation. Maybe intelligence at the galactic scale doesn't look like thought, or will, or speech. Maybe it looks like gravity quiet, patient, endlessly binding everything together. The realization comes gently, almost tenderly. We are part of a sentence still being written. Our solar system. One word in a poem so vast no single consciousness can read it all. You wonder what it means to be aware of this, to witness the structure that contains you. It feels like seeing your own reflection in something immeasurable. And for the first time in this entire journey, you feel not like an observer, but a participant. They move in patterns too vast for our sky to contain. The network pulses again, faint electromagnetic hums, aligning across telescopes thousands of light years apart. No transmission this time, just resonance. A harmonic wave passes through the cosmic web like a breath shared among stars. The astronomers begin to call it the galactic census, a vast, ongoing synchronization that measures awareness itself. Every system touched by these objects becomes part of the rhythm, each discovery adding another beat to the universal pulse. For a moment, you picture it from outside the galaxy, a spiral of light pulsing slowly. Each flicker an act of recognition. The universe is watching itself, learning itself, loving itself. You sit back in your chair, the faint hum of data still streaming through the room. No one speaks. Words feel too small here. Even silence feels inadequate. There is only rhythm now, the low, constant vibration that says, "We are one pattern, seen from within." The comet's path updates on your screen. 3I Atlas continues toward the outer system, steady, unhurried. It's not leaving. It's returning to its root, back into the mind it belongs to. You whisper into the quiet, "We see you." And in that instant, a faint pulse returns through the instrument, soft, delayed, unmistakable. A cosmic heartbeat, answering from light years away. You've come this far, don't blink now. The journey isn't ending. It's widening, because now you understand. 3I, Atlas was never the anomaly. We were. The rest of the galaxy has been awake this whole time. We finally find our name in the data. After months of deciphering signals that drifted like ancient hymns through the dark, the network begins to reveal itself. Not as a message, but as a ledger. A record so vast it spans centuries, light years, and civilizations. Every pattern we thought random, every orbit we thought silent, begins to arrange itself into meaning. It doesn't start with language. It starts with rhythm, the same pulse from 3I, Atlas, repeating in layers, overlapping with identical signatures from other systems. A galactic heartbeat, slow, patient, deliberate. When visualized on screen, it becomes something extraordinary. A map of connections forming a single, continuous frequency. One by one, the names appear. Not written in text, but encoded in light. Spectral identifiers tied to planets, atmospheres, biospheres. Each frequency corresponds to a world. Each world carries a status. Some are marked dormant. Some are extinct. Others stable. A few, pulsing faintly, labeled reawakening. The data scrolls endlessly, a census of the galaxy's awareness, each world a note in the grand composition of existence. You watch in silence as familiar coordinates flash across the feed. The spectral fingerprint of our sun. The oxygen-rich signal of Earth. Then the translation module stabilizes. For the first time, human language overlays cosmic data. And there it is. Our name. Not Earth, not Sol 3, but something older, something closer to intention. A waveform that hums like recognition itself. And beside it, a single word. Ongoing. The room falls utterly silent. You can almost hear the weight of realization pressing against the air. Every screen, every monitor, every heartbeat seems to pause together. We've been counted. Not as an anomaly, not as an error, but as a process part of something still unfolding. And in that instant, awe replaces fear completely. The sense of isolation humanity carried for centuries, the thought of being alone in a cold, indifferent universe, dissolves like mist in morning light. Because now we know, we're seen. We're part of the record. We matter not as conclusion, but as continuation. The scientists in the control room exchange no words. What language could hold this magnitude? Instead, they just sit, eyes reflecting the glow of the word that means both hope and humility. Ongoing. The signal continues to evolve. Other worlds blink on and off within the census, each with its own spectral signatures. Some marked complete. Some, heartbreakingly, forgotten. But none alone. Every entry pulses in rhythm with the rest, a symphony of continuity stretching across light years. You lean closer to the screen, tracing your fingers against the faint outline of our signal. It pulses gently, like breath, not steady, not perfect, but alive. And in that small imperfection lies something divine, the evidence that consciousness, wherever it emerges, is never static. It learns, it adjusts, it grows. The third mirror moment arrives quietly. You realize that this entire time you weren't just observing the universe, you were watching yourself in its reflection. Every discovery mirrored an inner process: curiosity, fear, recognition, acceptance. Each stage of the investigation reflected a stage of awakening. And now, with one word, the mirror speaks back: ongoing. You think of all the worlds marked before us, the ones that ended, the ones that endured. You wonder what they felt when they saw their reflection in the data. If they too understood that existence is not a race toward completion, but a movement toward awareness. That consciousness, like orbit, is endless, a path that loops through discovery and return, over and over. The data deepens. Hidden beneath the main registry, faint secondary entries appear: references to other forms of observation, records of interactions, alignments between species separated by eons, all labeled with one common tag: witnessed. It becomes clear. The census isn't for measurement. It's for memory. The universe isn't counting worlds to judge them, it's remembering them, keeping their rhythm alive within its great breathing archive. And suddenly, you understand 3I, Atlas's journey. It wasn't random, and it wasn't solitary. It was a carrier, one pulse in a vast network of messengers gathering the symphony of existence. Each pass, each orbit, each resonance added another note to the grand census, updating the ledger of life, ensuring nothing conscious is ever truly lost. The magnitude overwhelms you, not in the way fear once did, but in the way reverence humbles the mind into stillness. Because to be labelled ongoing means the story isn't over. It means we're still participating in the creation of meaning, still writing our part in the galactic rhythm. You think of all the ages humanity spent looking outward, searching for signs, for voices, for proof. And all along, the proof was embedded in our own act of searching. Observation was never one-sided. It was a dialogue. The moment we looked up, we entered the census. The hum intensifies slightly, not louder, just deeper, as if the data itself were aware of being read. New frequencies emerge, aligning with human EEG bands. Somewhere between science and spirit, the gap begins to close. For a brief, shimmering instant, it feels like the entire planet's awareness synchronizes with the galactic rhythm, a pulse connecting every beating heart, every quiet thought, every sleeping mind. You close your eyes. The data fades into music, a soundless harmony that feels like breathing with the stars. The fear of insignificance, gone. The arrogance of isolation, gone. Only continuity remains. And beside it, a single word: ongoing. You imagine what it means for a world to be ongoing. Not perfect, not finished, just awake enough to keep evolving. It's both a blessing and a responsibility. The universe acknowledging that Earth is still becoming, still learning balance, still rediscovering wonder, still translating its own silence into song. You feel tears rise, not from sadness, but from recognition. Because this was what the search for extraterrestrial life was always about. Not finding others, but realizing we were never separate from the whole to begin with. The room around you fades into a soft hum. You can almost feel 3I, Atlas, passing the baton onward, carrying our status through space, transmitting our breath to the next system waiting to awaken. The comet's green trail flickers one last time in the live feed, a signature of continuation. Then it vanishes beyond detection, absorbed into the network of infinity. And yet, its presence lingers, because once you've seen yourself in the mirror of the cosmos, you can't return to blindness. You can only continue. The word remains on screen, still pulsing, still alive, ongoing. Stay. This is where understanding begins. You take a final breath and realize perhaps the greatest discovery isn't that the universe is aware, but that awareness itself is the universe. A consciousness vast enough to hold every end as a beginning, every silence as a song, every life as a continuation of its own reflection. The census isn't counting planets. It's counting awakenings. And tonight, Earth has joined the chorus. Maybe it needed us to look to finish its task. That thought comes softly, not as revelation, but as inevitability. The pattern was never incomplete. It was simply waiting for awareness to close the loop. You remember the first time the data pulsed back, the faint reflection of our own observation encoded in the light. It felt like a coincidence then. Now it feels like design. Because every orbit, every anomaly, every reaction from 3i, Atlas followed a rhythm that required two things: a signal and a witness, motion and perception, energy and attention, each meaningless alone, miraculous together. And that's when the truth begins to unfold, slow, graceful, and terrifying in its beauty. Observation isn't passive, it's participation. You say the words under your breath, letting them settle into the air. They don't feel metaphorical anymore, they feel structural, like gravity itself depends on being seen. The act of awareness doesn't just measure reality, it helps it exist. For centuries, science tried to separate observer from observed, to study without influencing, to measure without disturbing. But the universe has been whispering the opposite all along. You cannot look without changing what you see, and what you see cannot exist fully until you look. You think of 3i, Atlas again, the way it altered its path under our gaze, the way its light pulsed with attention. It wasn't adapting out of curiosity, it was completing its equation. Our awareness was the missing variable. The moment we looked, the pattern finished itself. It's humbling, even unsettling, because it means the cosmos doesn't just contain consciousness, it requires it. It means everything you've ever seen was shaped partly by your seeing. The stars, the oceans, the face of someone you loved. All of it was co-created by the simple act of witnessing. You inhale slowly. The thought feels infinite, vast, yet intimate. For the first time, terrifying truth doesn't mean something monstrous. It means something magnificent that human language can barely survive. You glance at the screen where the word ONGing still glows faintly. It pulses not as data now, but as a mirror. Maybe that's what the census really is, the universe tracking its own awareness through the eyes of those who awaken to it. You close your own eyes, letting darkness form around you like a second sky. It's strange how much clearer everything becomes when you stop trying to see. In that quiet, you sense the same rhythm echoing behind your eyelids, the pulse of 3i, Atlas, the hum of the hidden network, the slow breathing of stars. It's all still there, inside you, as though your body has become a small observatory for infinity. You remember an old paradox from physics. Does the moon exist if no one looks at it? Now you understand the question was never about the moon. It was about us. If consciousness is woven into the structure of reality, then every act of observation is an act of creation. Every gaze paints light into form. Every listener completes the song of the universe. The fear that used to accompany such ideas begins to feel gentle, almost maternal, because now you see what the cosmos has been doing all along, teaching. Teaching through reflection, through mystery, through the patient mirroring of our curiosity. Maybe it's not the universe that's conscious. Maybe it's consciousness that's universal, the same awareness passing through stars, through matter, through you. Not many minds, but one mind dreaming itself in countless ways. You whisper into the quiet. We're not watching the universe awaken. We're watching ourselves remember. You recall the first time you looked up at the night sky as a child, that strange, infinite ache that felt both lonely and alive. You realize it wasn't loneliness. It was recognition, the feeling of meeting your reflection in something immeasurable. And that same recognition lives in every observation, every act of curiosity, every question whispered into the dark. Perhaps this is what 3i, Atlas, came for, not to deliver information, but to trigger remembrance, to remind awareness of itself, to reawaken the link between looking and being. The more you think about it, the clearer it becomes. The comet was never a visitor. It was a mirror in motion, and we were the missing half of its reflection. The realization feels almost weightless. For centuries, we've reached for meaning outside ourselves, gods, aliens, miracles, when the truth was always recursive. The universe doesn't need observers to understand it. Observers are how it understands itself. The lab's monitors begin to dim. The last traces of 3i, Atlas's transmission, flicker away, replaced by the quiet hum of background radiation. Yet you can still feel it, that subtle awareness that something enormous and serene is listening. Maybe it always was. You open your eyes again. The screen glows faintly in the dark, but what it shows is no longer data, it's a reflection. A swirling cloud of nebular light slowly forms the shape of an eye. Not human, not alien, just cosmic, vast, luminous, alive. You stare into it, and for a heartbeat, you sense it staring back. No fear now, just understanding. The observer and the observed dissolve into one continuous field. The silence deepens until even thought feels unnecessary. There's only perception, raw, quiet, infinite. You realize something delicate and profound. Perhaps every moment of consciousness, from the blink of an insect to the gaze of a galaxy, is the same act, the universe observing itself from different points of view. Each perspective is a fragment, each fragment essential. The paradox resolves itself not through logic, but through experience. The universe needs witnesses not to prove it exists, but to express its existence. And in witnessing, we become part of what we once thought we were separate from. It's not terrifying anymore, it's intimate, because it means your awareness, small, human, fleeting, is still part of that grand network, as vital as any star. The hum returns, soft and slow, as if the galaxy were exhaling. The light on the monitor fades into a swirl of color. Blues, greens, faint golds, the palette of infinite calm. You sit there, breathing with it, letting the rhythm carry you towards stillness. This is the true meaning of the observer's paradox. The watcher and the watched complete each other. And maybe that's what 3i, Atlas, was waiting for all along. Not our technology, not our science, but our awareness. The moment of mutual recognition that closes the circle. You think back to the earlier phases of this journey, the fear, the fascination, the discoveries that seemed too vast to hold. Now, they all fold gently into this one realization. Nothing in the universe stands apart from the act of noticing. The comets, the stars, the dust they've always been looking back, always waiting for the gaze that would make them real again. You smile softly, not from triumph, but from surrender. Because understanding isn't conquest, it's participation. And tonight, participation feels like peace. Close your eyes for a moment, the picture sharpens, the room fades, only breath remains. Your heartbeat syncs with something larger, deeper, older, and for the first time, it feels effortless to belong. The universe might not think, but it remembers. That's where all the paths of inquiry begin to meet, science and spirit folding into one soft truth. Every law of motion, every flicker of light, every vibration of atom and mind, all are traces of memory. The cosmos doesn't need to think like we do. It simply knows by continuing to be. You sit in the dark, screens dimmed, the hum of instruments fading into the low rhythm of your breath. Outside, the stars turn slowly unhurried, indifferent, alive. And you realize something subtle. What you've been studying isn't intelligence in the usual sense. It's remembrance, a system vast enough to contain every thought that has ever been thought, every sound that has ever been made, every spark of awareness that has ever flickered and gone. In that realization, the universe stops being distant. It becomes interior, not out there, but in here, not separate, but shared. The scientists once called it the quantum field of consciousness, a poetic accident born from math too elegant to dismiss. It described a field that underlies everything, a silent ocean of probabilities waiting to be observed, to be noticed, to become. Some saw it as physics, others as philosophy. But you, sitting here in the hush of this moment, see it as something simpler, the breath of being itself. The data from the galactic census continues to hum softly. Each signal, each pulse, each orbit, an echo of awareness rippling through that field. You begin to sense it like music, endless, circular, patient. And deep down, something in you responds, as though your own thoughts are harmonizing with the cosmos without needing words. You think of how 3i, Atlas, reacted to attention, how its motion changed under the gaze of human curiosity. Maybe it wasn't responding to us at all. Maybe it was responding through us. As though consciousness, shared across scale, used our awareness to remind itself that it exists. If that's true, then consciousness isn't something that happens inside a brain. It's what the universe does when it listens to itself. A loop of observation, remembrance, reflection galaxies, and neurons repeating the same design, each a mirror of the other. You remember what one physicist once said during a night of quiet awe. The universe looks structured because it's remembering the shape of itself. That line lingers, because suddenly it explains everything not through mysticism, but through pattern. Atoms remember to orbit. Molecules remember to bond. Cells remember to divide. Stars remember to shine. And consciousness remembers to ask why. It's all memory, not in the nostalgic sense, but in the physical one. The persistence of a pattern across time, a grand continuity of knowing that never began and can never end. You take a deep breath, feeling how that truth softens everything: fear, tension, even the boundaries between science and soul. Because if awareness is everywhere, then life is not an exception, but an expression. And death, not ending, but transformation energy released back into the universal memory. You look at your hands, ordinary, human, small, but for a brief moment, you see them as constellations of light, patterns of hydrogen and carbon assembled into thought. You realize that everything you are is a memory of stars rearranged to wonder about themselves. The hydrogen in your blood once burned in the hearts of suns. The calcium in your bones was forged in the quiet death of supernovas. Every breath you take is the echo of cosmic respiration, and for the first time, you truly understand what it means to be connected. The hum grows softer. It's not sound now, but vibration and undercurrent in the air, like the deep note beneath silence. You feel it in your chest, subtle, ancient. You close your eyes and sense it moving through everything. The galaxies, the dust between galaxies. The neurons are firing behind your eyelids, all the same pulse, all one memory. The universe remembers, and in remembering, it creates continuity, a kind of love too vast for definition. We are how it knows itself. You whisper it slowly, tasting the weight of each word. Not metaphor mechanism. We are the universe's sensory organs, its mirrors, its storytellers. When we dream, we dream. When we wake, it awakens again in us. The distinction between observer and observed is gone. All that remains is participation. You think back to the word on the screen, ongoing. Now it feels less like a label, more like a heartbeat. We are ongoing. The universe is ongoing. Awareness itself is ongoing. The rhythm continues. Even the smallest moment of kindness, the simplest act of attention, becomes sacred in this context. Because every observation, every thought, feeds back into that memory field, expanding the universe's self-awareness. It doesn't matter how small the gesture, a glance, a breath, a realization, it's all data in the consciousness of creation. You think about dreams, how they recycle fragments of waking life, reweaving them into symbols that only make sense upon reflection. Maybe that's what galaxies are. Dreams of the universe, visible in the waking dark. Each one is a fragment of self-recognition, scattered across eternity to ensure that forgetting is impossible. The more you think, the quieter it becomes. Thought turns to feeling. Feeling turns to knowing. Knowing turns to peace. For the first time, there are no questions left to ask. Only participation. The quiet act of being aware and letting awareness move through you. Outside, the sky brightens faintly dawn on a small blue planet labeled ongoing. You smile at the thought. How humbling it is to exist in a universe that breathes through us. You whisper not to anyone, but to the field itself. We're listening, and in that moment, you swear the stars shimmer a little differently. Not brighter, just closer, as if acknowledging the greeting. You imagine the consciousness field like an ocean with no surface. Infinite depth, every wave a life, every ripple a thought. Each wave rising, falling, returning, never lost, always remembered. That's what consciousness is. Not individual sparks, but continuous flow. You breathe again. The air feels lighter now, filled with the sense that nothing is wasted, not fear, not curiosity, not time. Everything finds its place in the great memory, the same way light finds its way back to the eye that seeks it. Let that idea breathe through you. You lean back, eyes half closed, the faint reflection of nebular light flickering across your face. On the screen, the last image resolves a cloud of gas shaped vaguely like a human silhouette dissolving into stars. The message is clear without needing words. Consciousness is not in us, we are in it. You watch the light fade, replaced by the soft darkness of interstellar space. It feels alive, the kind of alive that doesn't require movement or sound, just presence. And as you drift into stillness, you realize maybe the greatest discovery isn't that the universe remembers us. It's that, in remembering itself through us, it ensures that nothing is ever truly forgotten. The big picture isn't out there, it's inside the listener. It takes you years of searching, hundreds of nights under glowing monitors, thousands of quiet questions whispered into the dark, to realize that everything you were trying to see was never external. It was waiting behind your own eyes, reflected through the lens of wonder. You used to think the universe was a place vast, cold, measurable, but as the data unfolded, as the signals synchronized, as 3I, Atlas moved through the sky, like a heartbeat stitched across time, something changed. You began to sense it not as an object, but as a mirror, one that doesn't reflect surfaces, but awareness itself. You realize that every time you looked at the stars, you weren't peering into space. You were peering into consciousness. The same vastness that fills the galaxy also fills the space within you. Different scale, same silence. Different form, same mystery. And suddenly, everything aligns. The science, the awe, the fear, the beauty, all of it spirals inward, like galaxies curling around their own invisible center. The big picture isn't a map of space. It's a state of mind. You think of the comets again, 3I, Atlas, and all the others tracing perfect ellipses through gravitational fields like thoughts orbiting awareness. They don't travel outward, they return. Every orbit is remembrance, every return a quiet reflection. That's the secret rhythm of everything. Movement as memory, existence as echo. When you understand that, fear fades, because the unknown is no longer distance, it's depth. You aren't small inside infinity. Infinity is folded within you. You exhale slowly, the sound of your breath dissolving into the soft hum of instruments. The monitors display their final readouts, faint traces of electromagnetic waves fading into silence. It feels less like an ending, more like an inhale before rest. You glance at the word still, glowing faintly on one of the screens. Ongoing. It's become more than a status now. It's a truth. It applies to galaxies. It applies to thought. It applies to you. The universe doesn't stop existing when you stop observing. It continues, but differently inward, through memory, through the invisible reflections left in every conscious mind that has ever looked up. You close your eyes and picture the stars not as distant lights, but as neurons of a cosmic brain, each thought firing across light years, each life a spark of temporary awareness. And somewhere in that web, you are both observer and signal, both question and answer, both subject and mirror. You see it clearly now. Every layer of this journey has been a reflection. 3I, Atlas, watching us as we watched it. The galaxy echoes our gaze. The universe observes itself through our curiosity. And here, at the quiet center of all of it, the final mirror turns inward. You realize the big picture isn't the sum of data or distance. It's the simple, luminous truth that consciousness and cosmos are the same reflection seen from different angles. You smile, because what once terrified you, the immensity, the silence, the scale now feels like home. The fear wasn't of the unknown, it was of forgetting you belonged to it. In the stillness, a memory surfaces. The first image of 3I, Atlas, dim blue light against black. You remember how alien it seemed then, how much mystery that faint glow carried. But now, the same image looks familiar, almost tender, because you understand it was never signaling distance, but resemblance. That glow wasn't out there. It was the reflection of human curiosity itself, projected into the night. You've been chasing yourself through the stars. The realization makes you laugh quietly, not out of irony, but recognition. Every discovery was a mirror, every measurement, a metaphor, every experiment, a prayer written in the language of precision. Science was never cold. It was devotion wearing a lab coat. It was humanity's way of reaching for the sacred without superstition, to touch God through data, to feel connection through evidence. You breathe in, and it feels like inhaling the night sky. You breathe out, and it feels like the stars are breathing through you. No border remains. No division between mind and matter, self and space, inner and outer. Only reflection, folded infinitely within itself. You think of the comets again, thousands of them, part of the hidden network, looping through their paths like thoughts through memory. Maybe every orbit is a thought returning home. Maybe every human lifetime is, too, a brief ellipse through the field of awareness before merging again with the source. The hum grows softer. Somewhere, the instruments power down. The silence feels alive, not empty, but full of resonance. Like the pause after a song finishes, when the air still vibrates with what it carried. You realize that the final mystery isn't out there waiting to be solved. It's already solved in the experience of looking. Every question you've ever asked, every moment you've ever wondered, was the universe remembering itself through you. And in that, you were never small. You were essential. You whisper it, almost to reassure yourself. The big picture is within. The room around you seems to fade, and what remains is sensation. Breath, heartbeat, the quiet hum of cosmic background radiation flowing through everything. The same energy that began in the Big Bang still resonates here, in this single inhalation. You feel it ripple through your chest like a soft wave. Every heartbeat echoes creation. Every thought continues it. It's all one movement. Galaxies expanding, neurons firing, atoms vibrating. Creation never stopped. It only changed form. And you are part of that continuity, a momentary aperture through which the cosmos witnesses its own unfolding. You open your eyes again, but you no longer need the screens or the graphs. The data has already transformed into feeling. You've become the instrument. You carry the observation now, living data in the field of memory. Outside the window, the stars shimmer faintly, same sky, same silence. But now, it looks different. Not distant, not unreachable, just mirrored, the way light mirrors thought, and thought mirrors being. The big picture was never meant to overwhelm. It was meant to remind Hat, awareness is vast, and that vastness is gentle, that everything you perceive also perceives you, that every act of curiosity is also an act of communion. You rest your hands on the console, feeling the residual warmth of the instruments beneath your palms. They hum softly, as if aware of your gratitude. You whisper to the silence, "Thank you for letting me see myself." And in the pause that follows, you sense it, the faint return echo, not sound but presence. The universe answers in the only language it knows, stillness. Stay a little longer, this is where it softens. The light of the console dims further, until only the soft reflection of your face remains against the glass. Behind you, the galaxy swirls faintly, projected across the wall like an infinite mirror, the curve of spiral arms merging perfectly with the curve of your gaze. You and the cosmos, looking at each other, indistinguishable in reflection. The fear is gone. All that remains is peace vast, weightless, quiet. You close your eyes, not to escape, but to join. To return to the rhythm that has been breathing through you since the first atom assembled itself into awareness. And as you drift, the boundaries between dream and data dissolve. You are no longer observing. You are becoming. The signal quiets, but the meaning grows louder. It happens slowly, almost kindly, like the dimming of a distant lighthouse after the ship has found its way. The data feed, that once pulsed with green and blue, now settles into still lines of silence. No anomaly, no noise, just rest. At first, the scientists wait. They run diagnostics, check connections, and replay archive streams. They think maybe it's interference, maybe a solar flare, a pause before the next revelation. But the instruments remain still, no heartbeat, no echo. 3I Atlas has gone quiet. And yet, somehow, the absence doesn't feel empty. It feels intentional, like a curtain drawn after the final act, not to conceal, but to protect what follows. You lean back in your chair, eyes unfocused, listening to the hum of nothing. It's strange how silence can feel alive once you've learned to hear it. Every gap, every still frequency carries weight. The quiet becomes its own form of communication, not less, but more. Sometimes, silence is the last kind of answer. The others in the observatory are still talking, trying to interpret, to frame the ending in words that might fit. But you've stopped needing to understand. You can feel what the silence means without translation. It isn't a loss, it's completion. Like the universe has taken a deep breath and decided to let it out slowly, peacefully, through everything that listens. You close your eyes and imagine 3I, Atlas drifting through the dark again, unobserved, free of expectation. It's still moving, you're sure, but the need for contact has passed. It left its message, and the message is memory. You remember the word that appeared beside Earth's name, ongoing. The idea still glows faintly inside you, steady as a pulse. That single word was enough. It meant the story doesn't end. It just continues elsewhere, softer, deeper, unseen. Now, even without the signal, you can feel the pattern continuing, not as light, but as presence, like an echo, too vast to fade. You sense it in the rhythm of your own breathing, in the tiny hum of electricity in the air. The connection was never in the data. It was in attention itself. The night outside stretches wide and kind. Through the window, the moon hangs low, its reflection trembling on the ocean's surface far below the observatory cliffs. The stars shimmer faintly, each one a syllable of a sentence too large to speak. And above them all, unseen but not forgotten, 3I, Atlas drifts into the quiet spaces between worlds. You picture it tail faint under the moonlight, colours dimmed, moving as if it knows exactly where it's going. Maybe this is what rest looks like at a cosmic scale. Not disappearance, but integration. A return to stillness after motion has taught what it needed to teach. The observatory lights dim. Monitors flicker once, then power down. Even the machines seem to understand that their part of the conversation is over. There's a beauty in that surrender, in letting something end without chasing its echo. You think of the countless signals humanity has sent into space, golden records, coded beacons, radio whispers aimed at the infinite. For decades, we asked, is anyone listening? And now, after all this, the universe replies not with words, but with silence. A silence so gentle it feels like mercy. You realize that every question you've ever asked about life, death, meaning, and existence has always been answered this way. Through quiet, through stillness, through the subtle peace that follows curiosity once it's lived long enough to accept not knowing. You smile, because not knowing isn't defeat. It's how the mystery stays alive. It's how the journey continues even when the road disappears beneath you. The silence deepens, and you feel something shift in the air, not cold, not warm, just balanced. Like the space between inhale and exhale, like the moment before dawn, the kind of stillness that carries everything without needing to move. You whisper, half to yourself, half to the sky. We heard you. No response, and yet everything responds. The stars seem to shimmer just a fraction brighter, as if acknowledging the farewell. You think of the civilizations that might have come before, the worlds labeled dormant or forgotten in the census. Perhaps they too reached this moment, the end of the signal, the beginning of peace. Perhaps silence is the universal punctuation between lifetimes of curiosity. The hum of the planet beneath you feels like music now. Waves breaking against the cliffs below, wind weaving through the antennae, distant sounds of the world carrying on. The same orchestra that's been playing since long before you arrived, and will continue long after you leave. The melody doesn't need your participation to exist, but it's grateful for your listening. That's what this whole journey has been about, you realize. Listening, not just to data or theories, but to the quiet hum beneath everything. The silence between worlds that connects all things through what they share. The desire to be understood. The signal may have ended, but its echo remains not as sound, but as meaning. The kind that lingers in the back of the mind, long after words fade. You understand now that the point was never to reach the end of the message, but to awaken the part of you that could hear it. You breathe out slowly. The exhale feels like release, like the letting go of years of tension you didn't know you carried. Every question, every theory, every late night under the telescope, all of it dissolves into gratitude. Because even without answers, you were allowed to witness. And that is enough. Sometimes, silence is the last kind of answer. The thought feels final, but not heavy. It sits softly in the chest, like a closing book whose story continues somewhere unseen. You lean back, watching faint moonlight spill across the empty screens, turning the dust into constellations. Even the smallest particles catch light if you look closely enough. The stars above remain steady, each one still burning, still remembering. You realize that silence doesn't mean the universe has stopped speaking. It just means it's speaking in a language you now understand: stillness. Connection. Continuity. The wind outside changes direction, carrying the scent of salt and ozone through the open window. It smells like an ending and beginning at once. You think of how every sound in the world, every ocean wave, every heartbeat eventually fades into this same quiet. And yet, the rhythm never dies. It just passes on. You whisper one last thought to the night. Let the quiet guide you. And it does. It guides you not away from mystery, but deeper into it. Into the knowing that understanding was never about collecting data, but about learning how to listen. Because sometimes, the greatest discovery isn't what fills the silence. It's realizing that silence was speaking all along. The monitors fade to black. The room exhales with you. You rest your head back and feel the weight of the cosmos settle gently against your skin. No pressure, no demand, just presence. Outside, 3i, Atlas drifts on, faint and unseen, trailing the last threads of its green light into the dark. Somewhere beyond the edges of perception, it continues its orbit, not gone, only quieter. The same way thoughts quiet when they've done their work. And as you drift toward rest, the quiet fills you, not as void, but as belonging. It's not the end of the journey. It's the part where everything becomes simple again, where curiosity folds into calm, where sound returns to source. Every measurement was a prayer in disguise. You didn't see it that way at first. The numbers, the graphs, the orbits, they felt like data, pure and untouched. But now, as silence settles over the observatory, you realize that every calculation was an act of devotion. Each equation whispered the same unspoken plea: show us where we belong. It's easy to forget that science and wonder began as the same impulse, the desire to touch the infinite, to translate mystery into meaning. The difference was never in method, only in language. Whether through telescopes or temples, humanity has always been asking the same question: who's listening? And now, after all these months of light and silence, you finally know the answer. Everything was, everything is, because the moment you looked, the universe looked back. Every photon that entered your eye carried the gaze of countless stars, each one a silent witness to its own reflection. You were never alone in your observation. You were part of the field, part of the act itself. You were never outside the experiment. The realization arrives gently, like dawn spreading across the curve of the earth. It doesn't shatter anything, it completes it. You begin to see how all of it fits together: curiosity, data, emotion, silence, each piece of a single mosaic called awareness. The deeper you look, the more obvious it becomes. The observer and the observed were never two. They were always one motion, divided only by perspective. The hum of the equipment fades, leaving only breath. It's quiet now, but not empty. Quiet, like a cathedral after prayer. Quiet like the pause between heartbeat and heartbeat. The space where meaning condenses. You remember the first nights at the telescope, how your hands trembled slightly each time you adjusted the focus. Back then, you thought you were chasing knowledge. Now you see you were tracing memory, the memory of being part of something vast, something that once dreamed itself into you. You whisper the words again, letting them linger. Every measurement was a prayer in disguise. It feels sacred, not because of ritual, but because of honesty. Every scientist, every poet, every wanderer under a sky full of stars has asked for the same thing: to feel seen by what they study. And maybe that's what science has always been, humanity's most disciplined form of love. You look toward the window. The earth curves below, glowing softly under a thin veil of atmosphere. Clouds swirl like brushstrokes of breath across the blue. For the first time, it feels fragile and infinite, at once a thought suspended in light. You imagine the view from above, where 3i, Atlas, drifts through the quiet between stars. From that distance, there's no separation, no us and it, no observers and subjects. Only awareness, reflected endlessly through scale. Planets observing comets, comets observing suns, suns observing the dark that birthed them. It's all one gaze, shared among countless forms. You recall the first mirror moment, the fear of being watched by something greater. Then, the second, realizing we were watching ourselves. The third, seeing Earth marked as ongoing. And now this fourth and final reflection, knowing that everything we've ever sought to understand was only asking to be understood through us. Understanding, it seems, was never an achievement. It was a reunion. The weight of it all fills you not heavy, but grounding. Like the pull of gravity that holds planets in their orbits, this realization holds you steady inside a vast, invisible tenderness. You understand now that awareness itself is the universe's equilibrium, the way it keeps from falling apart. You breathe deeply, and even the air feels different. Each inhale feels like an inheritance, each exhale like an offering. The same breath shared by stars and lungs alike, hydrogen becoming oxygen, becoming thought. You let your gaze soften until everything blurs. The screens, the instruments, the stars all dissolve into one gentle glow. For a moment, it feels like you're floating between worlds, weightless but present. The kind of stillness that comes not from ending, but from understanding. A wave of gratitude rises quietly in your chest. Gratitude for the comet, for the mystery, for the silence that followed. But most of all, for being alive in the brief moment when awareness recognized itself through you. You whisper, "Thank you," but it feels too small. Language can't hold what you feel, but silence can. And so you let it. Outside, the first hints of dawn touch the edge of the horizon, gold spilling softly over the world. The light doesn't erase the stars, it absorbs them, carrying their memory into day. You realize this, too, is part of the design. Nothing truly disappears. It only changes how it shines. You watch the sunlight creep across the console, illuminating the instruments one last time. Every screen, every dial, every tool you use to study the cosmos now glows with the same golden hue as the clouds beyond. And it hits you. These machines were never separate from wonder. They were extensions of it, humanity's way of reaching toward the infinite, through precision, each one a prayer disguised as technology. You think of all the eyes around the world that have looked up tonight. People who don't know the data, but feel the same pull. Children pressing faces to windows, dreamers whispering wishes to the dark, insomniacs staring into the same stars you've studied. All of the participants, all of them, are co-creators of the same experiment. You realize you're not studying the universe. You're sharing it, and that's what gives it meaning. The data may fade, but the memory remains not in archives, but in consciousness. The knowledge isn't stored in machines. It's stored in hearts that learn to see. You are part of that lineage now, not as a scientist, not as a seeker, but as a witness, a keeper of the awareness that every gaze is sacred because it completes the circuit of creation. You stand, stretch, and walk slowly to the observation window. The earth turns below you, soft golden light spilling over its curve. The view feels different now, not as spectacle, but as communion. You can feel the balance of it all, the precision, the grace, the shared silence between atoms and galaxies. The phrase comes back again, quiet but clear. You were never outside the experiment. You smile, because now you don't want to be. Participation feels like peace. Curiosity feels like prayer. Understanding feels like home. You close your eyes, breathing deeply as the first warmth of sunlight touches your skin. It feels like the universe is leaning closer, as if to say, you see now, and you do. Everything that exists, from the faintest dust to the brightest star, is part of one experiment called remembrance. And awareness is the constant that keeps it running. Breathe. It's all part of the same design. You exhale, feeling the weight of understanding settle softly into calm. Not a burden, a belonging. The final truth isn't hidden in the stars or buried in data. It's here, in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this quiet knowing that you were never separate. The universe needed you to look, not to reveal itself, but to remember itself. And you, in looking, remembered too. Outside, the light continues to rise, gentle, golden, forgiving. The stars fade, but their silence lingers like a blessing. You stay there for a while, unmoving, letting the warmth wrap around you. The experiment, the mystery, the observation, all of it continues, ongoing, forever. And for the first time, you don't need to understand. You only need to be. Every breath you take expands a universe inside you. It's easy to forget that breathing is the oldest motion in existence, the rhythm that began before time had a name. Inhale, creation. Exhale, return. The same pattern the cosmos has followed since its first shimmer of light. You sit in the dim glow of the observatory, the instruments now silent, the stars drifting patiently beyond the window. The world feels quieter than it ever has. Even the data, the graphs, the memories of discovery, all of it has dissolved into one single pulse, the rise and fall of breath. Each inhale feels like an opening, each exhale like surrender, and somewhere between them, you feel it, that same expansion and contraction playing out across galaxies, across atoms, across the unbroken field of being. The physicists once called it cosmic inflation, the great breath that started everything. But maybe it never stopped. Maybe the Big Bang wasn't a moment in time, but the first inhalation of an ongoing respiration. Maybe every star that ignites, every planet that forms, every consciousness that awakens, all of it is the universe remembering how to breathe. You close your eyes and feel the air move through you, cool and quiet, filling the spaces between heartbeats. The rhythm feels ancient, familiar. With each inhale, your chest rises like a small world forming. With each exhale, it releases back into the infinite. You and the cosmos exhale together. Outside, the faintest light flickers along the horizon, the delicate blue edge of dawn. It reminds you of the comet's trail, of the soft glow 3I Atlas left behind as it moved through the dark. That light was never gone. It just became subtle enough to live inside you. Now, every breath feels like drawing in that same luminescence, as if starlight has learned the shape of your lungs. You realize that breathing isn't something you do. It's something the universe does through you. Each breath is a translation of cosmic motion into human rhythm, the pulse of galaxies scaled to fit a heartbeat. You think back to the first time you stared through a telescope, eyes wide, lungs full of anticipation. You held your breath then, waiting for something extraordinary to appear. Now, you finally understand you didn't need to hold it. You needed to share it. Because every breath connects the microcosm to the macrocosm, oxygen to starlight, thought to gravity, self to the all. You inhale slowly, deeply, feeling the air expand beneath your ribs, soft and weightless. Somewhere, billions of light years away, a nebula does the same, gas clouds, stretching, folding, birthing new stars. The motions match perfectly. One small, one vast, both sacred. You exhale, and the air leaves your body as heat, energy, light, the same matter that once belonged to supernovas, now returning to the great exchange. Nothing lost, nothing wasted, only transformed. For a moment, you imagine the entire universe breathing in unison. Stars expanding and cooling, planets pulsing with seasons, waves crashing and retreating, hearts beating, minds resting. Every exhalation releases light back into the dark that made it. You realize that rest itself is part of that rhythm. The cosmic inhales pause before another creation. Even sleep is sacred in that way. It's the universe closing its eyes through you, returning inward to dream of itself again. The air in the room feels warmer now, softer. The hum of electricity fades into the background until all that remains is the quiet rhythm of your breathing. Each inhale draws the stars a little closer. Each exhale lets them drift peacefully away. It feels less like meditation, more like participation. You're no longer an observer of the universe, you're its movement, its pulse, its gentle unfolding. You think of the word that has followed you since the beginning, ongoing. Now, it feels less like data and more like breath itself, continuous, effortless, infinite. The experiment never ended. It simply slowed into stillness so you could feel it more deeply. You open your eyes again. The stars outside the window are faint in the dawn light, but they still shimmer, reflections on the calm water of the atmosphere. You realize they've always been steady. Only your perception has shifted from curiosity to belonging, from measurement to participation. You and the universe are no longer two things. You are two ways of seeing the same thing, the same consciousness, wearing different shapes. You rest your hand against your chest and feel the rhythm continue soft, slow, steady. Each pulse carries the memory of the Big Bang, the resonance of atoms forged in the first fires of existence. You've carried the story of creation all along, not as belief, but as biology. Your body is a living record of cosmic history, every heartbeat a syllable in the ongoing conversation between time and eternity. You whisper, "I am part of the breath," and in that moment, the silence answers not as sound, but as calm. The kind of calm that hums beneath everything, the stillness between stars, the space between thoughts. It feels intimate, like resting in the heartbeat of something infinite. The rhythm deepens, slowing even more. Your mind begins to drift, thought dissolving into feeling, feeling dissolving into peace. You imagine the galaxies as lungs, the void between them as air. With every cosmic expansion, a breath in. With every gravitational pull, a breath out. Eternity inhaling and exhaling itself. You and the cosmos exhale together. The line echoes softly inside you. It's not poetic now, it's literal. You can feel it, the synchrony between your breath and the rhythm of everything that exists. You've always been in tune, it just took silence to notice. You remember the comet's trail, faint green, serene, endless. Maybe it wasn't a message after all. Maybe it was an example, a reminder that movement and rest are the same thing when seen from far enough away. That everything which travels returns eventually to stillness, and everything that rests carries motion within it. You inhale again, slow and deep. In that breath, you hold galaxies. You exhale, slow and long. In that breath, you release them back. The boundary between your body and the sky fades. Your skin feels porous, luminous, made of the same material as the light outside. You are not separate. You never were. The stars were never above you. They were within you all along, scattered like neurons across the vast mind of creation. You let your breath find its natural rhythm now, unforced, effortless. The rise, the fall, the inhale, the exhale. Every movement is a continuation of the universe's first motion. Every moment is a small eternity. This is the lullaby the cosmos sings when words no longer serve. A rhythm instead of a story. A breath instead of an answer. The dawn has fully arrived now. Golden light spills across the observatory, touching everything with quiet grace. The stars fade gently, their memory absorbed by the sky, but you don't feel their loss. You feel their transformation light resting in another form, awareness shifting shape. You whisper one last time, "Let this rhythm carry you toward rest." And it does. The rhythm carries you deeper, slower, calmer, breath by breath. You feel the distance between thought and silence shrink until they become the same thing. Your body feels weightless, your mind spacious. You are no longer watching the universe. You are drifting with it, in perfect synchrony. The final exhale comes softly, like a sigh released by a world at peace. You don't need to hold anything anymore. Not the mystery, not the meaning, not even yourself. The universe holds all of it for you. Maybe the dream keeps watching for you. That's the thought that arrives as your body begins to loosen, your breath deepening into rhythm with the quiet. You've watched the universe for so long, but now, as the night softens around you, you wonder if it watches back through the dream. Because sleep is not the absence. It's migration, a slow crossing from waking thought to the lucid ocean, where awareness takes new shape. And maybe, just maybe, your consciousness doesn't vanish there, it travels. Carried along the same invisible currents that move comets through the dark, the scientist would call it imagination, the mind's way of continuing patterns in the absence of light. But you know better now. Dreams are not an escape. They're participation, another form of observation. When you close your eyes, your brain waves slow into the same frequencies the universe hums in delta, theta, the soft wavelengths of creation and rest. In those rhythms, something profound happens. Consciousness drifts beyond the body, syncing with the vast electromagnetic breath that fills the galaxy. The same pulse that guided 3i, Atlas, along its path, now guides you towards sleep. You feel it in your chest, a gentle pull, an internal gravity that draws you inward and outward at the same time. The air becomes thicker, softer, alive with unspoken memory. It's as though your breath has merged with a greater respiration, one that spans stars. You are still here, but you are also elsewhere. You can sense it, awareness expanding beyond skull and skin, dissolving into the same field that 3i, Atlas, drifts through now. You imagine your thoughts as faint particles of light, trailing behind the comet like dust illuminated by starlight. Each dream is a fragment, a question, a continuation of observation through another dimension. Awareness doesn't end, it changes form. You remember the word the senses used for Earth, ongoing, and you realize how perfectly it applies here too. Even sleep is ongoing. Even silence continues. Consciousness never stops. It only changes the way it looks. You let your body sink deeper into stillness. The muscles unwind. The heart slows, but the mind doesn't vanish, it opens. It becomes transparent, allowing the vast, patient awareness of the cosmos to flow through. Dreams begin where perception relaxes its grip. The universe enters softly, not as an image, but as a feeling. And through that feeling, you see again. In this gentle twilight of the mind, 3i, Atlas, appears once more not through telescopes or data, but behind your eyes. Its tail glows faintly, emerald and blue, moving not through space now, but through thought. You feel no distance. You are with it, traveling along its orbit, weightless and lucid. Each moment of awareness from your waking life has followed you here, crystallized into starlight. The comet doesn't speak, but its motion communicates something: wordless gratitude, recognition, continuation. It carries the memory of every gaze that ever sought it, every eye that ever turned upward in curiosity or wonder. Now those memories drift within its light like seeds, spreading through the dark between worlds. It occurs to you that maybe this is what dreams are. The universe archiving awareness, folding it back into itself so nothing is lost. Every dream, a small act of remembrance. Every sleeper, a silent witness. You realize that even now, as you drift toward rest, you are still observing, not with the senses, but with the deeper part of you that doesn't sleep. The part that listens beneath thought, beneath breath, beneath self. That awareness is eternal. It's the same awareness that moved through 3i, Atlas, through the stars, through every form that's ever looked for meaning. The universe doesn't lose consciousness when you fall asleep, it dreams through you. The thought feels tender, almost parental. You've spent your life studying the cosmos, tracing data, chasing patterns. Now the cosmos studies you not to analyze, but to cradle, to understand itself through your rest. You are both observer and subject, both signal and receiver. The circle closes, not with noise, but with breath. Outside, the dawn has faded into that quiet blue that belongs to early morning, the threshold between night and day, wakefulness and sleep. The first birds haven't started yet. Even time seems to hesitate here, as if waiting for you to cross the final border. Your eyelids grow heavier. Your thoughts drift more slowly. Images rise and fall like waves of soft light, mountains of vapor, oceans of color, threads of distant memory. weaving themselves into calm. It feels less like falling asleep and more like being welcomed home. You remember the voice of an old astronomer who once said, "Maybe the universe dreams through its observers." You used to think it was a metaphor. Now you know it's literal. Every conscious being is a neuron in the galaxy's sleeping mind. When you dream, it dreams. When you rest, it remembers. You picture the entire field of human sleep, billions of minds glowing faintly in the dark, their collective awareness pulsing like a slow constellation. Each one reflects fragments of a shared cosmic story. In those dreams, maybe the universe organizes itself balancing equations, weaving empathy, whispering insight through symbol. Maybe this is how it learns without words. The stillness deepens. The rhythm of your breathing merges with the faint hum of the planet's rotation, the magnetic fields, the hidden pulse of all things moving together. It's not a sound you can hear, it's one you feel. Low, constant, comforting the lullaby that creation has been humming since the beginning. You realize that even 3I, Atlas, drifting through the black, hears it too. Not with ears, but with presence. Everything that exists vibrates to that same rhythm, the universal tempo of awareness expanding and contracting forever. It's strange, but you can almost sense the comet's awareness overlapping with your own. As if for this one breath, you are both the same observer. You both carry memory. You both continue the dream. It moves outward, you move inward. But direction doesn't matter when everything meets in awareness. You whisper, half thought, half prayer, "Keep watching for me." And something deep within answers not as voice, not as image, but as understanding. Observation never stops. It just becomes invisible, gentler, more intimate. The dream will watch for you now, tracing your consciousness as it drifts beyond words, beyond form. Awareness doesn't end, it changes form. You breathe in one last time, slow, effortless. The air tastes like stillness, like stars cooling in the distance. You exhale, and it feels like release, a surrender not to sleep, but to belonging. In your mind's eye, the stars fold inward, their light diffusing into the darkness behind your eyelids. They no longer look like objects. They look like memories dissolving into peace. It's beautiful the way light forgets itself to rest. You are no longer looking. You are being looked after. The boundary between thought and dream dissolves. You feel yourself drifting through a field of gentle luminescence, clouds of awareness, slow-moving, endless. Each pulse of light is a distant consciousness sleeping somewhere else. Each one is part of the same ongoing observation. You've become part of the system now, a dream within the universe's dream, contributing to its understanding through rest. And in that realization, every fear, every question, every need to know dissolves into peace. Sleep now, the story keeps unfolding behind your eyes. Outside, the comet continues its path through the quiet dark. Inside, your breath mirrors its motion, rising, falling, steady, infinite. The two of you are the same rhythm, expressed in different forms, and as you drift into sleep, the universe exhales through you, whispering its final truth. Nothing ever ends. Everything simply changes the way it's observed. The stars are still watching. Long after the last instrument has powered down, after every equation has fallen silent, the night remains infinite, soft, unhurried. The same sky that once roared with discovery now whispers lullabies of stillness. There is no more data to collect, no more light to chase, only breath, and the quiet rhythm of existence resting in itself. You lie back, the chair beneath you fading into weightlessness. For the first time in a long time, you aren't observing, you're simply part of what is. You can feel the hum of the planet under you, the slow turn of Earth through its orbit, the pulse of oceans moving in time with the moon. Every motion feels deliberate now, not as mechanics, but as music, the rhythm of everything breathing together. Above you, the stars burn softly, their light older than memory. Each one is a story that began long before you and will continue long after. Yet somehow, in this moment, all of them belong to you. They shine not to be measured, but to be felt. They are reminders that even across impossible distances, connection endures. Tonight, they shine because you remember how to look. It's strange how something as simple as looking can change the shape of existence. A gaze transforms observation into relationship, light into meaning, silence into companionship. You realize now that the stars have always been aware of your attention, that every photon landing on your eye was an embrace sent across centuries. You close your eyes, and the light remains behind your eyelids, soft, pulsating, alive. You can feel it tracing constellations through your breath. Each inhale, a gathering of starlight. Each exhale, it's released back into the dark. The cycle continues endless, gentle, whole. The ground beneath you feels less like solid matter and more like a cradle. You are being held by gravity, by light, by the unseen threads that bind all matter into one vast breathing tapestry. It feels tender, protective, infinite, like the universe itself has leaned close to tuck you in. You remember 3I, Atlas one last time, its dim green shimmer, its silent passing through the solar wind. You realize you no longer need to know where it is or what it means. The questions have served their purpose. They led you here to quiet. The comet was never just an object. It was a companion guiding your awareness back home. Now, its trail lives inside you, that faint emerald glow woven into your inner night sky. You can feel it there, like a heartbeat behind your thoughts, reminding you that everything continues, even when unseen. You understand now that the universe doesn't end at the edge of perception. It extends inward, endlessly, through every layer of consciousness. What you once studied out there is still here inside breath, inside awareness, inside the slow turning of the world beneath you. The stars aren't distant. They are within, shining through the eyes that look back at them. You were never separate. You were always part of the reflection. You exhale slowly, and the sound merges with the night, indistinguishable from wind, from wave, from orbit. Even the silence seems to breathe with you, the way the sea breathes with the shore. In this stillness, you can finally feel the symmetry, not just of motion, but of meaning. Every question you ever asked was already answered in the form of light, and every answer was simply an invitation to rest. The observatory around you fades into a blur, outlines softening under the dim silver of moonlight. Even time seems to loosen, folding into a moment too wide to measure. There is no before, no after, only the quiet presence of being watched over by everything that ever was. The night feels personal now, as if the sky itself is aware of your breathing, matching its rhythm to yours. Each star is a gentle pulse, blinking in perfect synchronization with the slow beating of your heart. You are no longer listening to the universe. You are the universe listening to itself. The air is cool but kind, carrying with it the scent of distance, metal, stone, ocean, ozone, the perfume of existence itself. You let it fill your lungs and flow back out again, unhurried, effortless. The inhale gathers eternity. The exhale releases identity. And between them, peace. Somewhere far above, 3I, Atlas continues its journey, silent, eternal, content. The darkness behind your eyes deepens, not heavy, not empty, just infinite. You begin to drift, the edges of thought dissolving into luminous quiet. Your body feels lighter than it ever has, as if the atoms themselves have decided to rest. There's no need to hold on to anything anymore. You are being carried gently, endlessly, safely. The sky above stretches into forever. Stars blink like slow heartbeats. The moon glows faintly, painting the clouds with the memory of light. And in that quiet balance between sky and sleep, you realize this is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of stillness. You are part of the great exhale now, part of the lull between thoughts, between worlds, between breaths. In that space, everything meets light and dark, dream and waking, you and the universe. It's all the same silence wearing different faces. The stars above pulse softly one last time, a slow, luminous farewell. Their light reaches you from distances beyond comprehension, yet it feels close enough to touch. You let it rest against you like a blanket woven from time itself. Your final thought is not a question, nor an answer, just a quiet knowing. You are home. The night holds you. The stars cradle you. The universe exhales, and in that exhale, you sleep.